I call the regular meeting of the Eugene School Board to order on Wednesday, November 16th, 2022 at 7:10 p.m. Board members attending tonight here with me are Gordon Lafer, Kirthi Hasija Kaufman, Alicia Hayes, Michelle Shu, Judy Newman, Laurel O'Rourke, and myself, Maya Rabasa. Please join Superintendent Dye as he leads us in the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Superintendent Dye. Now I will read the land acknowledgement. The Eugene School Board would like to acknowledge that our institution sits on the homelands of the Kalapuya people. In the treaties of 1851 and 1854 to 1855, and the subsequent forced removals of many Indian people from Western Oregon, some of the Kalapuya were moved to the Grand Ronde Reservation, and some were moved to the Siletz Reservation. It is important to note that all of Lane County was and continues to be an important trading and gathering area for camas and other resources. During the Restoration era from 1977 to 1989, Lane County was designated as the service area for the Confederated Tribes of Coos, Lower Umpqua, and Siuslaw Indians, the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Indians, and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians, the Coquel Indian Tribe, and the Cow Creek Band of Umpqua Indians. Eugene School District 4J acknowledges that the descendants of original and service area inhabitants of this land are still here today. They are thriving members of our schools and our communities. Countless members of other tribes now also call our community and schools their home. We wish to thank those original stewards of this land. We as fellow stewards of this land wish to remember that we need to take good care of this land and take good care of all the members of our school district community. First up on our agenda is an agenda review. Are there any questions, changes, or corrections to the agenda anyone would like to request? I see Gordon Lafer, you have your hand raised.
Thanks. I would like to propose that we add as an action for item addressing the complaints heard under policy KLAR.
Is there a second for this motion? Okay, I see Michelle Shu has her hand raised. So Gordon moves to add as an item for action. Can you put that one more time? A resolution to a complaint heard in the executive session, is that correct?
Yes, under
Okay.
KLAR. Yes.
Under KLAR, and Michelle Shu seconds. Is there any discussion? Laurel, do you have your hand raised for discussion or to address an agenda item?
Agenda item.
Is there any discussion around the motion that is on the table right now? Okay, then I'll call the question. All those in favor of adding an agenda item to an action item to conclude resolution on a complaint that was heard in an executive session per KLAR, raise your hands and say aye. Okay, I see Maya Rabasa, Laurel O'Rourke, Michelle Shu, Gordon Lafer, Alicia Hayes, Judy Newman, and Kirthi Hasija Kaufman. It passes unanimously and will be added to the agenda. Laurel?
I asked to be added to the agenda, and I'm not sure, probably as an item to talk about. Board members talking, when board members can talk and address staff and what that looks like. I forget the policy letters. Please excuse me, I had them written down and I can't find my notes. But it's already a written policy, and I just think we need to reiterate it because of something concerning I heard at a meeting last week.
So are you asking to add that as an item for information?
Is that the one where we just have a discussion about it?
It's
Yes.
the one where we receive information. So I assume that's what you're asking for, is to receive information about the policy?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so let me see if I have this right. You're moving to add as an item for information the policy surrounding board members having access to staff?
Nope, what the policy is when board members do talk to staff. The steps that involves.
Okay, so you would like to
There's a
add
name for the policy, so I guess if I hate to ask this of staff, but if they could help me. I had the notes, I was ready, and I cannot find it in my different notebooks I have going.
Give me 1 second. So there's a few different things that could be under the category of what you're speaking about. For example, when a board member receives information about a concern or a complaint from a stakeholder or a staff member, is that, or are you talking about building administrators or program staff proactively inviting board members to a site or program site as a learning opportunity?
Well, I guess all of them. What our role is and when we should do it and what we should do.
Okay. Is there a second? Alicia seconds the motion to add as an item for information the policy, which we will hopefully have in hand, surrounding when board members should talk to and how they should talk to staff. Is there any discussion? Laurel, you have the right to go first if you want to speak to it.
I just muted myself. Good. Yeah, brilliant. So, okay, I found my notes. It's BGGBD. If you can follow that. Why do we use letters? Wow. Bravo Golf / Golf Bravo Delta are the letters. So that's the one that I know of about, but I do like the ones that you mentioned as well being part of the discussion. I think it's a really good idea that it's in the interest of, we have a superintendent who's been in the position for a few months, and we want to make sure we're doing our roles correctly. So we're helping him do his roles correctly. And I think it's just helpful for us to know where that sits and everybody to understand it well. And I think it's a good discussion to have.
Okay, so we're looking at policy GBD/BG. Gordon?
I'll support this and I'll look at the policy. My only request is, if between now and whenever this comes up on the agenda, assuming it comes up, that you can find the names of the other policies so we can look at them and have a conversation that's at least focused on partly around what we have already as policy. That would be great.
Well, I will just say this is the first conversation. So I think really what will happen is that it'll probably be referred to staff to give us the information, correct? I don't want to say what we're all going to ask. Sorry, my dog is playing with a toy.
My request. Okay, yeah, fine.
Sorry, Kirthi?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify. And so we're adding this as an item for information or for an item for action? Because I clearly would like some more information on what the action would be. Is that, and I am understanding this properly? Okay, thank you, Gordon.
If there's no one else in queue, I will add myself. Does anybody else have something to add? My question here is, Andy, are you or another staff member prepared to talk us through this agenda, I mean, this proposed agenda item? Would it be better for staff to actually have the time to prepare so that we have a fruitful conversation either way?
I think I could at least, begin to answer some questions about what policies are in place, but I would probably not be able to go in depth and have summarized information of all the policies. So if the intent is to have some initial information or a discussion, I can provide what I'm able to gather. And if it's insufficient, then the board can decide what you'd like in terms of me coming back or gathering more information or what have you.
Thanks, Andy. Judy, and then Gordon, although before you go, Gordon, I'd like to know if Michelle has anything, and Alicia, I don't think you've spoken either.
The only thing I want to add is we have the working agreements also on the agenda. And I think at least in the old working agreements, this was addressed, and I didn't do a side by side, but I know this topic was in there. So if we want to link it to the policies that are board agreements, also talk about this, we should at least integrate it all. And maybe that's a place to have conversation.
That's a good point. So are you offering a friendly amendment to link this into the conversation around working agreements?
I'm just pointing out it's there because, I don't know if they're more extensive policies because I haven't done a review. So if it exceeds what's in the board policy, I wouldn't want to amend it, change what Laurel was asking for. So
Okay.
I'm just pointing out it's a part of it.
Okay, great. Alicia, and then Gordon, and then Laurel.
Thanks, Judy. That's exactly why I seconded it, was that confusion between working agreements and policy, and to get that clarity. So I know it's Laurel's motion, but I am excited that we're gonna take a look at both tonight. Thanks.
Well, we vote first and then we'll decide if we're looking at both tonight, but I understand the sentiment. Gordon, and then Laurel.
I'm happy to talk about this stuff. I guess I feel like it would be better I would prefer to put it off to the next meeting, only so that we can get more clarity on exactly which both policies and working agreements we're talking about. And also if Laurel were able to pinpoint, okay, here are issues of concerns that have come up within that, so that we can both, so I assume so staff could prepare more on that, and also so that we could think a little ahead of time about what are because there's a lot of different potential things involved in communication between board and employees. And I think it'd be great to discuss, but it'd be good to have a focused discussion. And it doesn't seem to me like we're quite there tonight. Thanks.
Laurel, and then if no one else has any other comments, I'd like to call the question so we can move into our agenda.
I'm willing to table my motion we haven't voted on it, but whatever's legal and Robert's rules to do right now, to give staff more time to gather information on this. And I just think it's a really important that we support our superintendent and that we are all on the same page. And this, as we change through people and board members and stuff, I think it's helpful for me when I have reviews on this. And so I think it's will be helpful for everyone. So more time, I agree. And I heard several board members say maybe more time. Do I need to bring this up at the end to ask for this, or will it already be happening?
So what you need to do is withdraw your motion now, and then at the end of the meeting, bring it up as an item for a future agenda.
Okay, I withdraw my motion now. My computer is fun, is the word we're going to use, and because we're in a public meeting right now. So in case I get kicked off and can't get back on, I asked if somebody else, if you could be so kind as to bring this for a future meeting. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion has been withdrawn. Are there any other questions, changes, or corrections to the agenda anyone would like to request? Okay, with that, we move on to introduction of guests and the superintendent's report. Superintendent Dye, you have the floor.
take myself off of mute. Thank you. Good evening, members of the board, listening audience. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My comments this evening will focus on the third foundational rock anchoring our work this year, and that is namely the safety and well-being of our students and staff. Hearing from our district that we're experiencing challenges related to student support systems, I hope you'll recall that we've temporarily redeployed our skilled coaches and teachers on special assignments along with district administrators to buildings, primarily elementary and middle school buildings. The buildings where they went were identified to receive support teams following a review of data, including comments from teachers and surveys from principals to staff, maybe not formal surveys, but conversations, vacant positions or high volumes of absences amongst adults in particular buildings, student incident reports, and a high number of students needing tier 3 interventions to successfully navigate their school day. Teams reported this last Monday to work with administrators and colleagues to identify what systemic supports would be most valuable for the challenges their individual schools are encountering. In addition, district level administrators have also dispersed throughout buildings to provide relief to building administrators so that they can focus on systems level support and do the very important work that they need to as an instructional leader. Finally, our human resources team continues to process new classified hires to ensure we're providing additional subs in buildings as swiftly as we possibly can. In response to staff feedback, these newly hired educational assistants are also receiving training and de-escalation strategies so that they feel confident and prepared to step in to successfully support our students and just feel more prepared for the ins and outs of their new role with 4J. As with any new process, there always is a need to review, refine, readjust. However, I believe the supports we're providing now will allow schools to better respond to the current needs when our licensed coaches and teachers on special assignment refocus their efforts on the important work they were doing before they were redeployed into schools. In a similar theme, I'm pleased to share we continue to expand mental health support and wellness programs through really strong partnerships with community agencies like Oregon Social Learning Center, Sexual Assault Support Services, Rapid Response Team, and Lines for Life, as well as our ongoing work with the JED Foundation that's helping complete an audit at all 5 of our high schools. These resources are available to all staff and students, and I really do appreciate the work our staff has done to build out and strengthen prevention and wellness services in the district. It's a testament to their dedication for sure. As we shared in the Friday memo with board members, the work to ensure safe and secure facilities continues in our district. You may recall that the district was awarded nearly $400,000 in competitive federal grant funding to review and update safety procedures. The initial steps included comprehensive assessments, the creation of emergency operations plans, establishing secured and locked exteriors, facilitated by the implementation of a visitor management system, along with restructuring, training, and hiring additional certified campus safety monitors. In the coming year, our work will focus on prioritizing the next round of safety enhancements, including video and communication system upgrades, along with additional needs assessments of our campus safety teams. The district remains committed to balancing safety and security with a welcoming and inclusive environment. So we'll be spending time this year and next reviewing the balance between those two needs through the lens of our shared values. Related to staff well-being, in the coming weeks, we'll be embarking on the first round of data collection around staff sentiment, commonly known as stay interviews. Through surveys, we will request feedback from our staff on the aspects of their position that are rewarding to them and the areas where they feel they could use additional support from leaders at all levels. This being 4J's first walk through this task, we expect there will be a great deal to learn. We look forward to identifying areas that will help us to continue to build a district where people feel heard, people feel valued, and people feel supported. Finally, we are entering into a season that can be a source of joy and togetherness as we begin annual celebratory events. Not all, however, in our community experience it in the same way. There are many in our community for whom the holiday season brings additional stress. Students, families, and our own colleagues may find themselves struggling with different burdens, be it financial struggles, interpersonal strains, seasonal effects of the shortened daylight, or just simply the weight of ideal expectations. For those reasons, it's important for all of us to reach out and take care of one another. Our collective commitment to well-being of our colleagues, students, and their families during this time of the year should be a point of pride for our district and everybody in it. I'd take this opportunity to highlight the generosity of our partners and our community in providing needed supports whenever possible. For individuals in our system who may be struggling, please know that there are members of Team Eugene who strive to be a resource and connection point to supports both internally and in our region. And with that long update, I really want to thank you for your time and for your support.
Thank you, Superintendent Dye. The next item on the agenda is items raised by the audience. The school board receives written comments by email at board@4j.lane.edu and sets aside time in each regular board meeting to hear public comment. Community members can sign up to speak to the board by submitting their request online at 4j.lane.edu/board/public comment, or contact the superintendent's office. The deadline is the Monday before each meeting. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes and cannot give their time to another speaker. A timer will count up, indicating when 3 minutes have been reached. Speakers may offer objective comments or criticism about district operation and programs. For complaints about individuals, the district has a board policy and complaint process. Please contact the superintendent's office at 541-790-7707 for more information about submitting a formal complaint. Tonight, we have 6 community members who have signed up to speak, and I believe Debbie will be welcoming them in for us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our first speaker tonight is Heather Miller Huerta, and she will be followed by Amanda Voss.
Hey all, can you hear me? Yeah, all right. Good evening, board. I'm an educator. I'm a parent who had to take their disabled child out of 4J in order to find accessible education, and I am an advocate for listening to those with lived experience. I'm here to talk about our approach to supporting our students in 4J. Both as a parent and as an educator, I believe that behaviorism is not only a thing of the past, but one of the most harmful things we've ever let take hold in education. When we let a system view children, particularly disabled children, as their behaviors and nothing more, we continue in the long history of dehumanizing all disabled people. When the inhumanity of behaviorism hits a student who sits in an intersectional place, the effect is often devastating. There's a progressive movement out there towards relational health, towards peer support, towards acknowledging those with lived experience as necessary to the process. As I watch your efforts towards greater equity unfolding, I wonder when this lens will be extended to disabled students. I need you to see that our children aren't causing the dysregulation, they're responding to it. I'm in shared spaces in this community that are full of stories of how we're failing our disabled students with this latest and greatest push for inclusion, poorly planned and poorly funded, which combined with the staffing shortages has led us to a place of deep crisis again. It's getting old, this pretending not to know how to support disabled students, this pretending that it's the fault of the children or their families and not those actually running our schools, actually making the decisions. I appreciated hearing Jess speak the meeting before last on the literacy crisis we've fueled with our struggling readers and dyslexic students. I'm trying to use my language precisely here, since I consistently hear framing that puts these issues on our children, on our families, on poverty, on fill in the blank. But our children don't run the schools, they don't pick the curriculum, they certainly don't structure interventions. When we've ignored the decades of scientific research behind how humans really learn to read, when we've tried to deny dyslexia even exists to the point of refusing to list it in actual medical diagnosis and IEPs in order to not be on the hook for testing for it or remediating it, and continually refuse supports for writing disabilities such as dysgraphia, and seen our role in providing augmentative and alternative communication devices solely as a gatekeeping one, when we're so heavily invested in not seeing or hearing these students, and certainly not in genuinely supporting them, we're somehow shocked that we have so many students who are not thrilled to be inside of our school buildings, who aren't doing well or behaving well because we're not teaching them well. The crisis here is that instead of identifying the students that need further supports and then providing those supports, we've been identifying those students and then applying more and more behaviorism, concerning ourselves with forcing compliance rather than providing an accessible education. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Heather.
Amanda, are you there with us? Okay, we'll go ahead and let in Shauna Mustin. And then if Amanda is on after that online, we'll listen to Amanda.
Debbie, before Shauna starts, I just want to make sure that if possible, the timer can start up. I was trying to watch the time, but I'm not sure if I was doing an okay job.
Sure, we had a hiccup and it's ready to go now.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Shauna, the floor is yours whenever you're ready. Oh, yes, Shauna.
Hi, my name is Shauna. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I also want to take a second to thank Andy Dye. Even before he took his new role as superintendent, he's been the only one within the school district that returns my phone calls and even emails me on his off time. Sorry, lost my spot here. I am here tonight because I am scared, I'm worried, and I'm honestly angry. Our kids are no longer safe in the 4J school district. The removal of school resource officers from our schools couldn't have came at a worse time. The COVID distance learning has affected our children's growth in so many ways. Add the behavioral issues, unlike anything that 4J has ever seen, and we have created a perfect storm. I know 4J is aware of the behavior crisis in 4J. I have seen the district try to combat this by requesting additional help to be deployed to schools to help teachers and administration deal with the violence happening throughout the district. While this is a temporary solution, I can't help but wonder if having the SROs in school would eliminate the need for these additional employees and free them up to do the jobs that they're originally tasked to do. I'm aware of the anonymous reporting boxes placed in schools. While this can be helpful, and we may see some reports, know that most middle school and high school students will not use these, as they refer to them as snitch boxes. I do want to take a minute to say that the campus supervisor at North Eugene, Kenny Niles, has been a great addition to North Eugene. He has been a wonderful resource for our students, but he can only do as much as the district allows. I have racked my brain with all of this, and only logical conclusion that I come up with is in addition to individuals like Kenny, the anonymous boxes would be to bring back school resource officers. I believe that they have a fighting chance to rebuild a safe environment for all of our children if they work together. Our kids aren't safe anymore, and this needs to change. What happened to zero tolerance bullying? I see bullies getting a slap on the wrist. The same suspensions that they give to the bullies, they give to the children who defend themselves. Your policies tell our children if you're attacked, don't fight back, duck, cover, cower, run, just get away. I have watched these recorded attacks on multiple social media apps. I have seen what happens to the kids that follow 4J's rules. I have watched the beatings continue as victim tries to get away, while students stand back, watch, record, upload for views. These kids become easy targets and repeatedly get bullied. Oh, I guess I'm out of time. I teach my kids to stand up and to fight back. And I will be removing my children from the 4J school district if things don't change. They're simply not safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna.
Amanda, are you with us now?
Yep, Amanda here. Okay, start.
Sure, go ahead, whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much for letting me come speak tonight. I really appreciate you guys. I also appreciate all the time and the energy and the heart that you put into our students and the families. Tonight I wanted to come and speak to the importance of parent involvement. I don't feel like that's probably anything new to anybody, but I always feel like it's nice to highlight for a little bit when it feels like it could be used even more. I've got 3 kids. 2 of my kids are in 4J schools, and my youngest I'm homeschooling. I've been really involved in supporting the Adams School District, or the Adams Elementary School, and have spent a lot of time in there. And the effects of parents being involved, whether it's like in the classroom or out of the classroom, but feeling very engaged with their school, really benefits the teachers, the students, everybody. I came across this group called Oregon Moms Union, kept hearing about it, and like finally learned a little bit more about it. And I wanted to bring it to your attention because the way that it could appear is not as accurate as what their actual mission is. So when I go, it could appear that it's a very like conservative group, but it's a bipartisan group. And I want to read their mission. Their mission is to provide statewide leadership for parent involvement and a student-first K-12 education. So that's their goal. And like I said, it's on both sides of the aisle. I do a lot of advocacy work. I really appreciated the woman who spoke, Heather, spoke about special ed and what students need. In my advocacy work, I would agree with all the things that she shared as some of the main concerns I have, even for some of our students in special ed. But my point is that in my advocacy work, I have found this beautiful kind of collaboration as like a push and pull, and also just a different perspective of being a parent and an advocate within the school system. So I've sat in my own kids' IEPs and in other people's IEPs, and it can be a little contentious at times to constantly trying to be finding like a way through how to serve our students best together. But I have found that in it too, the relationships that get built and the trust that gets built is like really incredible, and it serves the students best. So I feel like the Oregon Moms Union, if it keeps doing what I have seen it be doing, it could possibly be a good little collaboration or like a way to have parent input into the schools or to the district and to get support, and also kind of that push and pull for like, how do we serve the students best? Because when you get parents involved, they're able to speak to something that's a little bit different than a teacher or an administrator and stuff like that. So collaboration is amazing. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Amanda. Next up, we have Marion Malcolm, who will be followed by Rose Wilde. And whenever you're ready, Marion, go right ahead.
Hi, okay, I guess I'm on.
Yes, you are.
Good evening, board members, administrators, and staff. I want to acknowledge that the school year has been really tough. Many students, through no fault of their own, have never really learned the routines and rituals of school life, or really even how to exist in society collectively. That situation has been, as you very well know, compounded by staffing shortages and barriers to welcoming volunteers back into the buildings. There just haven't been enough adults in the buildings, in the classrooms, in the hallways, or anywhere. And I really appreciated what Superintendent Dye had to say this evening. I do know that the district is trying to address these issues, and sending people from 200 North Monroe into the buildings, at least as a temporary step, is a good move. At the same time, I hope the process of hiring good folks to fill all the vacant positions can be accelerated, and also that would-be volunteers can be moved through the process more quickly. I've heard of people who've been waiting to volunteer and they haven't yet been accorded that opportunity. And students, clearly, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, need support, which means that adults need to have the time it takes to find out what's going on with the kids, not just desperately try to manage behaviors. We know that what we call misbehavior, and the behavior itself often is unacceptable, harmful to others. That so-called misbehavior is a cry for attention, understanding, help, safety. Somebody has got to have the time to listen. I don't know what could be more important. The time and space for that, for compassionate interactions, is absolutely a prerequisite to any meaningful, engaging, effective education. I'm speaking tonight on my mother's birthday and in her loving memory. She was a teacher, sometimes in the classroom, sometimes in the community, always a creative educator. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Madam Chair, we do not see Rose Wilde in the audience, so we're going to move to Stephen Mayberry. And if Rose Wilde shows up, she'll go after Stephen Mayberry. So Stephen, you'll be up next.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Today I'm going to talk about accommodations and modified diplomas. What I'm about to say reflects emails I sent last school year to you on February 16th, 2022 and Wednesday, March 9th. Some of you might remember this information from the many hours of conversations I've had with you over the last couple of years. About 3 or 4 years ago, I was hanging out with my fellow high school Learning Center case manager friends after hours. I asked a question: would you have fewer students on modified diplomas if accommodations were being appropriately applied to students with disabilities? The answer was yes, absolutely. The reasons surrounding this seemed to largely involve the lack of support and direction from the district when applying accommodations. Not providing accommodations is a violation of the student's civil rights. Inappropriately moving a student to a modified diploma is a violation of least restrictive environment laws. Case managers are put in the impossible position of trying to make sure accommodations are being followed with little support from the district when they come against teachers who are tired, working hard, possibly misinformed, or just resistant to the idea of accommodations. So case managers invent workarounds to be able to maintain relationships with their peers and administrators just to get through the day. It's not possible to overstate how hard it is for case managers to ensure accommodations are followed for students with hidden disabilities. Some will defend the decision to move a student to a modified diploma, even if the decision might be questionable. They will say things like, it was an IEP meeting decision. The modified diploma is an important tool in our ability to serve some students with IEPs, but if the parent isn't fully informed, can we really say it was a part of an appropriate IEP team meeting decision? Today, this practice has become so commonplace that some case managers and specialists can even be heard saying things like, why aren't you moving more kids to modified diplomas? It takes the pressure off the student and it gives you the flexibility to do a lot of really cool stuff. While this is true, it's easy to see why parents jump at the suggestion. But if this decision is due to the fact that the student is credit deficient because of the lack of accommodations being applied in regular classes, this is a problem. Building and downtown administrators are aware of this and have confirmed this, so this isn't in dispute. We seem to lack the courage, however, to put special education in front of curriculum. There is far too much to cover in just 3 minutes, so I would like to invite any parent listening to have a conversation with me or their case manager, especially if your student is on a modified diploma. If you hear something that doesn't seem quite right, get a second opinion. Examples might include a lack of clarity concerning what is to be modified, or if the decision was made because of credit deficiency, that would be inappropriate. I want to throw a shout out to Heather, the first speaker. I could not agree with her more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayberry. Madam Chair, that concludes our speakers as Rose Wilde doesn't appear to be with us.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you to all the community members who shared their time and thoughts with us tonight. The next item on the agenda is comments by employee groups. I'm not sure who's coming first, either Sheila Wagner from OSEA or Seth Faflin from MAPS. I see Seth hopping on, so it looks like Seth Faflin will start first. Oh, there we go. Now I see you. You moved.
Oh, good. It's working, I think. Good evening, Board Chair Asa, school board members, Superintendent Dye, and everyone in the listening audience tonight. My name is Seth Faflin, and I'm the president of MAPS. As most of you know, MAPS stands for managers, administrators, professionals, and supervisors. Our MAPS employees often work 10, 11, or 12-hour days, day after day, week after week. Why do we do this? We do it because we're so dedicated to our students and staff. We believe in the power of public education and in the mission and values of this district. The long hours worked by MAPS employees do come with a price. Work-life balance is one of the main challenges for MAPS staff and is truly hard to keep in equilibrium. Tonight, MAPS would like to center our comments on a theme of gratitude and appreciation. With Thanksgiving coming up next week, we want our colleagues in EEA and OSEA to know how much we appreciate them and that we see and know the deep truth of their dedication and long hours too. Tonight, for all of you listening to this, I hope you will take a moment right now to write down the first 3 people who come to your mind when you think about gratitude. If you are a parent, please think about your children and their 4J experiences. Who are you most grateful to and for what? If you're on the board, or if you are a 4J staff member, who do you most appreciate in your work and why? Please do jot down your quick list of 3 people for whom you want to share some gratitude and then reach out to them. It only takes a few minutes to send a brief message and you will be spreading some much needed positivity into the world. There are so many real and stressful challenges in both our district and the world right now, but we can make positive changes together. We heard people tonight speak about some of the challenges. MAPS is grateful to see strong district actions on supporting mental health and student behavior. MAPS is grateful for the new bargaining agreement with OSEA and the increase in classified pay. Everyone deserves a living wage, and we're grateful every day to our classified staff who we see caring for our students. MAPS is also grateful to our teachers and our specialists for their creativity and dedication and inspiration, and for supporting all students in inclusive classroom communities. Please do reach out to the top 3 people on your gratitude list. There's a lot of research that says by doing this, you will reduce your own stress and you will bring increased feelings of happiness to yourself, and you will get to be a ray of sunshine to those people you reach out to. Have a good evening. And from all of us in MAPS, we hope you have a Thanksgiving filled with connection, belonging, and love. Thank you.
Thanks, Seth. Sheila Wagner from OSEA.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So my name is Sheila Wagner, and I am OSEA Eugene Chapter 1 president. I wanted to thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak, and thank you for your service on this board. I'm a bit emotional tonight as we just a few hours ago voted to ratify this historic contract with 4J School District. Yes. So congratulations to all, as this is a win for all. Our chapter's bargaining team started meeting a year ago this month to prepare for the negotiations with 4J School District. We received so much information from our members. Let's see there we go. Some of those came through their stories of financial challenges that they had suffered. Well, with this contract, that's going to bring about some changes. The last time I spoke to the school board, I spoke about making 4J School District that place again that people want to go to work and feel respected for the work that they do. By approving this contract, 4J is proving that they are listening to and valuing the work of our classified staff. I truly feel that our district is heading in the right direction. With this contract secured, we look forward to working with the school board regarding staff to student ratios and student and staff safety. We should all feel safe at our work sites, including this school board too, right? Speaking of this board, I also want to thank the board members who have attended chapter meetings and listened to the members' stories concerning finances, safety, and our futures. I look forward to this continuing and this district really feeling like a team. I'm not going to talk your ears off, but I would like to say a big thank you to Laurel O'Rourke for her speaking about the $18 an hour minimum wage and continuing to support and uplift the wages so we have living wages for all. I also want to say, hey, right back at you, Seth. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. And thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you, Sheila. The next item on our agenda is comments and committee reports by individual board members. Kirthi?
I'm volunteering to go first today because it's late here on the East Coast and may not be so coherent after a little bit. Didn't have committee reports, but I did have the opportunity to attend OSBA this last weekend. And it was, I have to say, a very strong feeling of just learning, and then also at the same time learning how much I don't know all at once. So I wanted to say the conference itself was, it was good to be in a place where you could tell that people are actually there because of a passion that they share, however they approach that. I wanted to give a shout out to Alicia, who's for her award for School Board Member of the Year. I think that she was overdue for that, and there was a giant picture of her on the screen over the entire auditorium. So I just want to let everyone know you can find Alicia on a big screen somewhere near you. Some of the things that were striking to me, and I did stay kind of in certain areas that we're going to be working with in terms of committees, were looking at the case of public education and the case of this last election and how far it had dropped in terms of priorities for our general electorate. It was, to me, eye-opening. I shouldn't be eye-opening to a certain extent, to see some of the priorities that had overtaken that in a way like safety and homelessness and whatnot too. And it made me think about, to a certain extent, our responsibility for communicating how education and a public education system actually has direct correlations to improving all of those outcomes and those priorities across the board. And that when we speak about education, it's not, as we were talking about, it is an ecosystem. We're not just speaking of one thing. So all of those pieces are connected. I don't know what that is going to mean for funding, but it tells me that as a legislative committee and on those things, we have to do a really strong job of advocating for 4J. We had some great school board members who were there who were sharing their experiences about storytelling. I think Sheila just talked about how powerful those messages are and putting those together. So I'm looking forward to doing that kind of work with Judy and the district on working on some of those things. I'm currently at a conference on early childhood in DC, and I wanted to say that it's probably like a 95% women. And it was striking to me because as we talk about our education system, one of our keynote speakers at the OSBA had, I'm going to paraphrase this very badly, where representation is by the way with which we dream. And I was thinking that one of those ways, I mean, it's one thing we really need to be talking about our teachers, our educators, and thinking about, we've been talking about diversity, but like what communities they represent, what demographics they represent, and do what we can to make sure that children are also seeing themselves in a pathway as an educator. Like they have to have the system there, and then they want to grow up and be a part of it. I think that's some of our responsibility to be able to be looking at the long-term outcomes for that as well too. That's really wanted to say. We have a legislative committee meeting next week. I'm looking forward to meeting with Judy and putting some structure around what the legislative breakfast would look like. And to echo the message of Thanksgiving, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have been appointed to this board, and I am grateful for the learning that has gone on in doing this. I sometimes am amazed at how much brains can actually hold, and I'm pretty sure I'm losing stuff as new stuff is coming in. But it's been really good to have community with people I did not have community with before, and I appreciate that piece of it. And so thank you.
Thank you, Kirthi. Judy?
Thank you. And thank you, Seth, for the reminder. I guess as I'm listening to the people who testified tonight and to my fellow board members, I am grateful. I'm really grateful for the issues and the information you bring to us. I think so many important things were touched on, from our struggling students, and remembering, I hate, we should be looking at what our students need and skills they need to learn and routines, and it's not about blame. And our teachers and staff who are struggling to serve them, and with being short-staffed. And the importance of involving parents, that's something I've been talking and thinking about a lot. It's been a focus of my career. So parent engagement, looking forward to look at doing that more. So just, I could go on. And Kirthi, the importance of education really needs to be elevated. That's something that's disturbed me too. But tonight, I just returned early this morning, seriously early this morning, from a civil rights journey. And I'm still really processing the many stories we heard, people we met and talked with, and the sights we saw, and the emotions that have come up. There were about 35 people from Lane County on this journey, and the ages ranged from 31 years old to 78 years old, and from people from very diverse backgrounds. People were from the city of Eugene, from Lane County, from 4J School District, from community-based organizations. There were elected officials. There were staff from these different places, leaders and organization volunteers and members. Our common ground that we all was that we all live and work in Lane County, in Eugene, and we're committed to having an inclusive community. The trip started in Atlanta and traveled to Montgomery, Selma, and Birmingham. We visited museums, monuments, and stood in places that historic events from the civil rights movement took place. We heard from current leaders of the civil rights movement, which included leaders who actually worked and walked with Martin Luther King Jr. and John Lewis, just to name two, and so many others. I'm still processing my impressions and emotions and learnings, as I know others on the trip are doing. It was painful and sobering, and it was inspiring and energizing and very powerful. I know this experience will have a lasting effect on my heart and my actions, and I look forward to sharing more details about the trip at future meetings and focus on ways we, in partnership, can carry what we learned into our work to deepen our commitment and work for inclusion and equity in our 4J community and our community at large. I look forward to sharing more of this soon. I also just want to mention that over the past 2 weeks, the EEF board, I'm the board ex officio representative to the EF board. They met to review grants that were received from staff working in buildings and also staff that are serving district-wide. It was just amazing to see. There were about 85 grants that were very seriously considered, a huge time commitment. And I want to do a shout out, first of all, to our staff that took the time to apply, because it does take time. And really their motivation is to really enhance the opportunities for our students. And also to the EF board members who spent their time reviewing those in a very, very thoughtful, in-depth way. So I'm really excited. We'll probably have some people are starting to be notified about those. We'll have a celebration. And last, I just want to say I'm really thrilled to vote tonight to approve the OSBA contract. And it really takes steps to improve salaries and benefits for our really hardworking classified staff who fill so many different roles and responsibilities in our district that are critical to our mission, which is every student is connected to community and empowered to succeed. So thank you for all you do. And it's really an exciting night to be able to approve that. Thanks.
Thank you, Judy. Gordon?
Thank you. A lot of good things are happening in the district, a bunch of which have been described. But I also want to acknowledge that the school system, like systems across the country, is in terrible crisis. We know that students, parents, and educators are working in a system where everyone is dangerously overworked and too thinly stretched, and where a lot of kids are being failed. Above all, that's because the richest people and biggest corporations in the state are not paying their fair share of taxes. We need to address that, and I hope my colleagues on the legislative committee can take care of that. But in the meanwhile, obviously, we need to do the best we can with the resources we have. And I just want to address a couple things about that. One is the crisis of students in distress that we're living through, and the behavior issues that come from that has been a huge thing. Part of the kind of short-term response to that has been asking teachers on special assignment to leave their special assignments to work in classrooms. I know that that's been hard and messy, and in some cases it makes more sense for TOSAs to continue doing their current job rather than move to help out in the classrooms. But I appreciate the urgency with which the superintendent addressed this issue. This is obviously a short-term solution and not like the best fit solution. But I remember coming to a board meeting before I was a member of the board when teachers at River Road were talking about the crisis of room clears there and feeling like the school wasn't safe for 5 or 6 year olds. And as just a member of the public, I sat there thinking, how can the board not say, okay, we need to stay here till 2 in the morning until we come up with another couple $100,000 and put more adults in this school? And so I know this is a temporary solution, but I really appreciate that the superintendent has addressed this with the urgency that the situation requires, even on a short-term basis. The longer-term thing is that in the next few months, we're going to be figuring out what to do with the Student Success Act money. This is the second time when we have to hold public hearings and decide what to do with what's probably the biggest chunk of discretionary funds we have, about $20 million for the district. I very much hope that what we can do is not spend a little bit on a lot of things, but pick a few key areas that we'll try to invest in. And I think special education has to be one of those. And that we'll be in the position, I hope, of saying, okay, if we have $7 million or $10 million to spend on this, what is the smartest way to do that? I appreciate and support the call to move away from behaviorism towards a more holistic type of education, and figuring out the best steps to take in that direction, particularly with significant but limited budgets, is complicated. And part of that process, obviously, has to be a fundamentally increased level of inclusion of educators, teachers, EAs, and parents to learn from their on-the-ground experience about how things are really playing out. I was happy to hear that Superintendent Dye, working with parent and advocate Jenny Canaday, has started convening meetings of a council of parents of children with disabilities, meeting with district leaders and staff. And that step away from the district's previous stance of defensiveness towards parents and instead inviting them in to help us figure out what to do is critical. And I hope that'll be how we go through the SIA process in the next few months. I do want to briefly raise the question of parent volunteers. And this is something really, I guess, for another meeting. I'd like to hear, probably like all of us, what we can do to get as many parent volunteers back as soon as possible. And as part of that, I could be wrong, but I was recently told that there's an $80 fee for a background check that each volunteer has to do, that volunteers and parents are being asked to pay out of their own pockets. Maybe I'm wrong. If that's true, that's something that we need to change, because volunteers are needed everywhere, but especially in the neediest schools. And that's the place where parents can least afford to spend $80 a person on background checks. On the good news, like other people have said, I'm thankful to OSEA and especially to all the employees who came forward and told their stories of what they face in their jobs and their lives. Without the bravery to come forward and speak up in that way, we'd never be here. And second of all, I also want to express appreciation to District Librarian Amy Page. I know that we're going to get a presentation later tonight about the for the first time in 20 years having librarians in elementary schools. I also know that we recently, I think, sorted out the fact that there is $25 per student set aside for library book acquisitions, which in the past didn't function like that because we didn't have functioning libraries in most of our elementary schools. And I know that the district has committed that at least by next fall, that money will be given for library acquisition at the direction of librarians. And I believe that we can, and I think that we are going to also equalize library acquisition funding for North Eugene High School. There are a lot of things that North gets less of because of lower student enrollment and just in the way that, per student budgeting plays out. And we can't correct all of that, but this is something that we can solve. I look forward to that being a reality. And mostly I just wanted to express my gratefulness to Amy Page, District Librarian, for her leadership in trying to make this new implementation of elementary school librarians a success. Thank you.
Thanks, Gordon. Laurel.
Thank you. I'm going to read from the website leanin.org, and the article is Working at the Intersection, What Black Women Are Up Against. Black women face vast obstacles due to racism and sexism. Our research tells a clear story. Living at the intersection of racism and sexism is far from easy. We are discriminated against for being Black and for being women, and we exist in both identities at all times. The story of Black women at work and in life is one of resilience. Despite the challenges and barriers in our way, we've accomplished so much and continue to make amazing strides. We are highly educated, we are ambitious, we are business owners forging our own paths. Our drive to succeed is often not just for ourselves, but also to lift up our communities. Outside of WIC, we are the forefront of social change. As the National Women's Law Center has stated, almost all social justice movements were and are carried on the backs of Black women. Our contributions to culture and academia, literature, fashion, music, social media, feminism, and so much more are undeniable. And we challenge society to be better. As Maya Angelou said in 1978, out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a path that's rooted in pain, I rise, we rise. We are highly educated. Black women enroll in college at a higher rates than men overall, and most notably are at higher rates than white men. Between 2004 and 2014, the share of Black women with a bachelor's degree or higher increased by 24%. We are ambitious for ourselves to make the workplace better for others. As many Black women as white men, 41% say they want to become executives. More than half of the Black women who want to become top executive also say they are driven by a desire to influence the culture of their workplace. Again, they are more likely than any other racial or ethnic group of women to name this as a motivation. We are the fastest rising entrepreneurial group among women. Black women-owned businesses grew by more than 600% between 1997 and 2017. Compared to 39% for white women-owned businesses and 114% for women-owned businesses overall, which is wonderful. We mobilize our communities, friends, and families to vote. In 2018, 84% of Black women voters said they talked to their friends and family about voting, the highest percentage of any racial or ethnic group. Black women also tend to vote at higher rates than other groups despite voter suppression. Eligible Black women voted at rate 6% percentage points above the national average in 2018. Systemic racism at work. Black women are successful in many ways, but our achievements are in spite of glaring inequity in society, including the workplace. In all of Lean-In's research on the state of Black women in corporate America, we see the same general pattern in so many different ways. Black women have it harder and worse experience than almost everyone else. We're overrepresented in minimum wage jobs. We're hired and promoted more slowly. We're often the only Black woman in the room and experience a greater variety of microaggression than women of other races and ethnicities. We are paid less than men and most other groups of women. This is all to say we face bias and systemic barriers constantly. I'm here to help all marginalized groups. When I ask for change, I'm saying it out of my mouth, but I am representing all the people who voted for me. I'm saying what's important to really happen. The limousine liberals that talk about equity and diversity and inclusion, but when it comes down to saying and choosing to make it happen, they notably say no. And if it's about them, they say they're being harassed. All I want is for people to hear and say, yes, you're right. I have some work to do. I want to thank Judy Newman, because every time last year, which I didn't notice at the time, when I called her on racism, she said, I want to know more. I want to learn more. I hear you, I'm not doing it right. And I didn't hear it because I had other voices in my ear. Recently, I call out other racism I'm experiencing from other board members, and I'm not hearing that. But that's all any Black woman wants to hear is I hear you, and I want your voice matters, and you're right. Being able to admit when you're wrong is powerful, and it's important since we're all leaders. It's one of the most powerful things you can do as a leader. Thank you.
Thanks, Laurel. Alicia, did you already speak or do you want to go? I'm happy to go also if you prefer waiting.
No, I'm sorry. I thought I'm just sitting with that. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Actually, thanks to all the board members who spoke tonight. You hit on very important subjects and very important celebrations. So thanks. Just have to call out Heather, her presentation in 3 minutes around students and how we perceive students with disabilities and how we support them or don't is important. And I have a feeling that we will be getting some more in-depth information from staff, particularly Gordon, as you pointed out, how we could spend our funding that's coming up. I think that we need to, and at the end of this meeting, maybe we can come up with a suggestion on when and how with all of us that we want to hear that information, or at least get it on our calendars. Because as you know, with money, we tend to spend it a few times. So let's get started on that. Also, Amanda, thank you for the part about parent involvement. I think when we think about parent involvement, we think about, asking questions or surveying parents, but really that deep parent involvement that I got to hear a lot about this summer at the workshops, the OSBA workshops, about how do we bring parents in to help their students and students be successful. Not just the ones that can volunteer in the classroom, but how do we involve them in what their parents are learning? So just want to continue that work. And I know a number of us on this board have put that as important as we look at our goals. Also, very happy to hear about the stay interviews. That is something I've been asking for and looking at and hoping we would do for at least the last 5 years. So I'm really excited that we have that, and we can see how we can not just talk to people who are leaving, which I will say I think is important, but why are you staying? And let's do more of that. And what would keep you and make you happier to stay? Let's do more of that. So I think gathering that data is very important. And thank you for the staff that are putting that together and going out and getting those voices and collecting those thoughts. I did have the chance, like a number of people did not have any boards or committee meetings this last couple of weeks, but I did have a chance to go to OSBA. And I will say the keynote speakers were excellent. I didn't think I would ever get to meet a band member from Hanson, but if you were at OSBA, you got that. I know you're wondering why. I'll explain another time. Anyhow, and then I couldn't get that song out of my head, so, and I won't even bring it up here because I don't want to do that to all of you. But the student performers were excellent. It was great to see the jazz band from Bethel perform, and them hauling in their equipment was as impressive. I did have a chance to go to a couple of sessions that I thought were really important and timely. Session on public comment and disruptive behavior I thought was important. A strategic planning session where I learned a little more about where the board's role is and isn't, which I have to say was a little bit of new information. And as we embark on something, if we do that looks like strategic planning, I have kind of a different take on it now. Also, one on superintendent evals, which looks like we are on track, maybe, you know, and meeting our goals. So good job on that. Also, it's just always a wonderful opportunity to meet fellow board members from across the state and see where they're thriving and where they're having, you know, issues, or where they're looking to put more energy and finding out that, you know, I know it sounds silly, but sometimes it's just nice to know you're not alone in the lack of funding or the issues you're facing, and some of their creative solutions to some of the things we're dealing with. So really appreciate the opportunity to get out and get to see that. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thanks, Alicia. So like Kirthi and Alicia, I also attended the OSBA conference, and I just want to draw attention to the keynote speaker that we heard from on Saturday. His name is Brandon Fleming, and if you haven't had the chance to listen to him speak, there are many clips available online, and I highly encourage you to. Kirthi mentioned one of his quotes, and it stuck with me as well, but I'm going to throw out a few for you all to have the chance to sit and ruminate over. Brandon Fleming shared his education story with us. He wrote a book called Miseducated, and he had these statements to share with us. Stories change people more than information ever will. We don't have a content issue, we have a connection issue. Representation is the lens through which we dream. Love and empathy will change people more than information ever will. We have a moral responsibility to love first and teach second. We have a moral responsibility to love first and lead second. We have a moral obligation to love first and legislate second. And the last one I leave you with is, when you teach, you relay information. When you educate, you empower. So I really encourage you to go and check out Brandon Fleming. I was moved and have been thinking about his words ever since. This week, I had the pleasure of joining the North Eugene High School students and staff in the Ruby Bridges Walk to School event organized by the Black Student Union and the students participating in No Place for Hate. My 5th grade daughter and I bundled up, as it was definitely a chilly early morning, and joined the energized students walking to school carrying signs and calling out chants. The walk to school was preceded by a beautiful speech full of information about Ruby Bridges, delivered by a North Eugene High School senior, Melanie Hicks. Well done, Melanie. I was overwhelmed with pride watching you deliver your speech, but my favorite part was seeing just how much self-pride you exhibited in that moment. Well done, North Eugene, BSU, and No Place for Hate. This event gave our 4J community a chance to see the power of our affinity groups in action. I've been receiving lots of positive feedback about the spotlighting of staff I've been doing at each board meeting, which I call the heart of Eugene of 4J. I'm not surprised. People really, really like to hear their colleagues being appreciated. Appreciation is too often condensed into one day or 1 week. And I want to help us shift to a culture of continual appreciation, because we have several thousand staff members who are doing amazing, magical work. Tonight, I will share about a staff member at the request of one of their colleagues. So many of our staff members work in roles that are mostly hidden to the greater community, so often doing jobs that the daily happenings in our district are completely reliant upon. One of these departments that works outside of the day-to-day spotlight is technology. So tonight, I want to speak to you about Brian Hartman. Brian has been serving 4J for almost 19 years now as a technology support specialist, and I'm going to share a few of his own words as they capture his heart perfectly. I still wake up and look forward to going to work. No matter what is going on in my life, I have a job to do and need to be a positive force for our staff and students. Working in education has been such a rewarding job. Seeing our students grow and seeing what they have accomplished, hearing about students' hopes and dreams. I've attended and worked at many graduation dances and band concerts like these are my own children. Brian started at North Eugene High School as a tech specialist, but has also served as a technology teacher, pulling together a group of students who learned so much they were able to help him serve the staff. Several have gone on to work for 4J, the University of Oregon, and some went on to technical colleges. He has served a number of schools, sometimes up to 4 at once. In addition to working on and leading several district technology projects, he has been asked so often to mentor other technology specialists that he has likely helped in one capacity or another at every single 4J school. His colleague who asked for me to spotlight Brian is a classroom teacher, one who readily admits they are not comfortable troubleshooting their own technology challenges. They note Brian's extensive knowledge and experience, ability to teach and empower colleagues technologically, and to get along with staff, students, and families alike make him a vital member of the school community. Though he currently is not formally serving as a technology teacher, he continues to teach while performing his tech support duties. His coworker praises Brian with these words: "Technological issues are solved swiftly and correctly, with Brian helping us to learn how to navigate similar problems in the future. His clear communication makes it possible for both technology novices and experts to grow from his wisdom. During comprehensive distance learning, hybrid, and the transition back to full-time on-site learning, Brian deserved a cape. Like a superhero keeping a city safe, Brian made sure everyone's technology was optimal, despite the challenges COVID brought. He often put in extra time, was extremely flexible with his schedule to accommodate others, and always had a kind word of encouragement. And though Brian is clearly a talented technology support specialist, it is his heart that I return to once again. In closing, I share these words from Brian's colleague. While his skill set and success at his job are admirable, the best part about Brian is the person himself. School staff thrive when staff are full of kind, thoughtful, talented, supportive, friendly, and motivated people. And that is exactly who Brian Hartman is. Thank you, Brian Hartman, for being an integral part of the heart of 4J. With that, we move on to the next agenda item, which is the consent group items for action. There are 5 items on the consent agenda tonight. Is there a motion? I see your hand raised, Gordon.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second? I see Laurel O'Rourke, so moved to approve the consent agenda by Gordon Lafer and seconded by Laurel O'Rourke. Is there any discussion? Judy Newman?
I'm sorry to ask this, but I only see 3 items on there. Are there 5? You're muted, Lana.
Yeah, you're right. There are, I thank you for that correction. There are 3. You are absolutely correct. I apologize for that.
Did I miss something? Okay, thank you.
No, I am super thankful that you saw that. Thank you. I appreciate that correction. Kirthi?
My only comment was that one of those was the approval of the OSBA contract, and I'm just very proud to be part of that decision too. So thank you.
Yes. Are there any comments, questions, discussion? All right, with that, all those in favor, please say aye and raise your hand. I see 6 hands raised voting in favor. Laurel, oh, I see, yeah, 6. I see, sorry, I see 7 now. So it passes unanimously with votes in favor by Michelle Shu, Maya Rabasa, Judy Newman, Alicia Hayes, Gordon Lafer, Kirti Hasija Kaufman, and Laurel O'Rourke. Thank you, everyone. The next item on the agenda is items for information. We start with equity trainer selection process, and I turn it over to Rob Hess. And Kalina Beard. Hi, Kalina.
Thank you, Chair Rabasa, members of the board. We just want to update you on the process of the equity trainer selection process. So I'm going to turn it over to Kalina and introduce her. She is our new Chief Administrative Services Officer, and she has been on the job a little over a week now and contributed a great deal, including expertise regarding contracts and selection of procurement, et cetera. So how this process will work, and then I'll wrap it up.
Thanks, Rob, and good evening to you all, Board of Directors. So happy to be with you and with the 4J School District. I'm just going to really give you a high level of this process. You'll receive documents along with the proposals that'll go into way more detail, but just really wanted to take the opportunity to highlight a few things for you. So in this process, Rob is your project manager, and I'm going to be your procurement coordinator. And we conducted an intermediate or informal solicitation, and from that solicitation received 9 written responses. For all intents and purposes, this portion of our meeting tonight is what's called the pre-evaluation meeting, and it's just the walkthrough of what will be required of you. What are some things that you need to keep in mind as you're taking a look at each proposal? So state statute, public purchasing rules and policies all combine to outline an evaluation process that affords fair and equitable treatment for all of the proposers. Again, I'm going to provide a very high-level overview of 2 documents. Those documents are the Evaluation Committee Instructions and the Evaluation Committee Conflict of Interest Certification. For the general public, you can find templates of these documents on oregon.gov/DAS, that's Department of Administrative Services, DAS/procurement. The evaluation committee members will receive these documents via email for your review and signature. You will be required to complete, sign, and date these prior to receipt of any of the proposals. So for the sake of time, again, I'll share a few really important things. As the evaluation committee members, you must maintain confidentiality at least until the issuance of a notice of intent to award letters, and sometimes until the execution of the contract. Contact and discussion of this evaluation with any of the proposers or other evaluators, other agency staff and managers, or other persons, including but not limited to stakeholders and the media, is not permitted during this phase of the process. Discussing the proposals compromises the integrity of our solicitation process. Evaluation committee members shall independently review and rank each proposal based on the evaluation criteria that I believe was provided to you during your November 2nd regular board meeting. If you need any additional information from another person on staff, that's anybody, or if you need clarification from a proposer themselves about information in their proposal, please contact me. I'll follow up and provide information regarding that inquiry to the entire evaluation committee. Please do not contact the proposer yourself. So the process that we'll go through is you receive those 2 documents. Please read them very thoroughly, complete, sign, and date them, and then you'll return those documents to us. Once we receive your completed documents, we'll provide you access to all 9 of the proposals along with your evaluation or scoring sheet. After we've received completed sheets from each of the committee members, then I will take those scores, I'll average those scores and rank them from the highest to the lowest. The 3 highest ranked proposers will comprise a short list. Shortlisted proposers may be invited to interview with the evaluation committee, that's you, or the highest ranked proposer may be named the successful proposer and issued a notice of intent to award. And that typically happens when you've got a huge gap between your highest ranked and second ranked. If interviews are conducted, the evaluation committee will score each interview separate from the proposals, and the highest ranked interview will result in the successful proposer. And I think that is pretty much all that I feel like we need to go over tonight for those purposes. Again, please feel free, once you receive the documents, to contact me directly. I'm glad to walk you through those documents, clarify any information or any statements that I've made tonight or that are made within that those documents. Also, for your reference, within each of those documents, I've provided the appropriate Oregon Revised Statute or Oregon Administrative Rule for you to be able to take a look at and see what the requirement is. And then again, if you disagree, please feel free to reach out and contact me. And that's all I have if there are no questions.
Yeah, so what will happen? Excellent job, Kalina. Thank you. Yeah, Judy, do you have a question on that?
Oops, I think Laurel's hand was up before mine. I just wanted to say thank you for that beautiful, thorough explanation. I know what to do next perfectly. Thank you so much. Thank you. I had to say it like 3 times. Thanks. Great. I ditto that. My question isn't, you explained that beautifully. It's not for you. I really understand what I'm supposed to be doing. But it was just about, is this a good time just to ask another question about the process?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to state that once you're going to get these documents from Kalina, and then after you sign those and return them, I will send you the access to the actual quotes, along with a Google form where you'll put your rankings. And you have until December 2nd to complete that scoring. So you've got a couple of weeks. And then what you voted on last time was that the top 3 we do in-person interviews. So that's the process we do.
So can I ask my question?
Yep, you bet.
Great. So last time I actually raised the issue about the points that we assigned. And I see they're the same as they were last time. And I had concerns about the last 2 being so low, because I think they're also very important. And I just wondered what the conversation was. I had felt pretty strongly that being available is at least worth a 20-point. I don't want to skew this. And then the cost of services versus the value should also be an opportunity to have 20 points. I had asked questions about the rating system, but never really, no one responded, and I see it's the same. So I guess I would like to at least increase those last 2 to 20-point option, but.
May I respond to that, Rob?
Sure, thank you.
Yes, and thank you, Judy, for that question. So for all fairness, the rating system that we came up with, you have to come up with that and the ranking ahead of requesting the proposals, because typically if I'm a vendor and I'm responding to those proposals, if you're a good vendor, you're going to rank your proposal or create your proposal in response to how we've ranked things. it's not to just rank I say the allocation of points does not in any way indicate a level of importance. It's just allows us to pretty much rank them, which is what you're doing. And there are ways in which, and we can talk through that, where you can take some of those things into account and some of the other criteria areas if that is what you're desiring. Our goal is to find the best value proposal in that, which is why price it's important, but it's ranked the least. And you've got some of their qualifications and experience being the highest rank. And the belief typically is in industry is that you should, I'm going to say should, get a more efficient person there. And I would say that Rob brought up the interview process. This definitely is something that if you decide to go into interviews with the shortlisted firms, that truly is something that we could, just their availability, we could rank secondly and have each of them prepared to talk about, because the thing that you're talking about is capacity. Whether or not we bind them with a contract or whatever, you're wanting to know, do they have the capacity to do the work that you're asking them to do? Does that help a little bit?
I think it does. I think that, let me just see if I understood what you said exactly. So that we don't just choose the ones with the top number of points in our rating, that we then rank them and we'll take the top ranked ones. Did I get that right?
I think I lost sound for a moment, and let me mute while you repeat.
Okay, I think what I heard you say is that we don't just select our top 3 based on the most points. We do the scoring and then rank our rank them. So what you're saying is that could be taken into account in the ranking.
Yes, so what you will do is you will score and you'll provide me a ranking for all 9 of those proposers. Then I'm going to take everybody's score sheets, average it out, and from that, the top 3 will kind of bubble up. The people that everybody ranked, which is likely the person that most everybody ranked number 1 would end up being number 1, number 2, number 3, like that. We would drop out the bottom 6 and take the highest 3. I would do that. You all wouldn't have to do that. I would do that based on your combined scores.
And rankings. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. But I want to just add, Judy, in addition, when we get to those top 3 proposers and you are interviewing them, we can go ahead of time. We know their availability. We want them to clearly address availability and capacity. So one of the things that we can ask them to address, for example, is what are the other contracts that you currently have active and how much time are you allocating to each of those? And also, how much time are you allocating to the fulfillment of this particular contract? That will allow you all on the back end, when you are rating those interviews, to make a good assessment of that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's really helpful.
I just have a couple of points of clarification. Our scoring is the ranking process. We're not separately ranking them, but what our score is how you then take the ranking from it, correct? So if I have one that gets a 92, another that gets an 82, and another that gets 50, it would be 1, 2, 3. I'm not going back and doing a ranking system of evaluation.
Yeah, that's correct. That's
okay.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Okay. And then I just wanted to also clarify the reason that the scoring didn't change is because last meeting we did have a motion and an extensive discussion, and the motion didn't pass, and so the scoring remained the same for that reason. So that's also, Judy, maybe that answers your question also as to why they look the same as the proposal that we looked at last week.
Yes, that's correct, because the motion didn't pass.
Are there any other questions for Kalina about this next step? Well, in that case, thank you so much, Kalina. That was very helpful. You really made it very clear as to what our next steps are. And I look forward to working with you on doing this selection process. And also, again, welcome. All right, the next thing on the items for information is the library pilot update. Rob, you're back up again.
Yeah, and I want to introduce Amy Page, the district librarian, who is who has put together a presentation to just give you an update where this pilot is. And so, Amy, take it away.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here if I can get to it. Can everybody see that all right? Awesome. I don't want to do that. Let's do this one. Here we go. All right. So first off, I just want to say thank you. My name is Amy Page. I'm the district librarian, and I'm just really excited to have the opportunity tonight to share how elementary teacher librarian pilot is going. And just thank you for giving me the time. And Gordon, thank you for just your encouragement and support and recognition, and to all of you as well. So I just wanted to start by really saying thank you. Like, thank you for creating this elementary librarian pilot. What an awesome gift to have elementary teacher librarians in 3 of our schools. It is exciting, and I'm grateful for your dedication to not only literacy, but to the teaching of information literacy skills, digital citizenship, and technology skills that a teacher librarian brings. Here is a bit of a timeline of what has happened so far. On June 22nd, you, the 4J board, approved the 5-year pilot of elementary teacher librarians. The jobs were posted in late July, and hiring began in August for teacher librarians at Chavez, Holt, and Howard. Since then, Justin Huntley and I have been working to support principals and teacher librarians in the implementation of this new position. Let me take a moment to really quick introduce our new team in elementary. I would like to start by introducing Martha Dyer. She is our new teacher librarian at Chavez. She's a delightful, upbeat, knowledgeable, experienced librarian that was a hidden gem working as an educational assistant at Aubrey Park. The fabulous Robbie Cortez, Holt's new teacher librarian, was the library manager last year at Holt. He was a teacher librarian in New Mexico for many years and was ready for a change when he moved to Oregon and was hired at Holt as an educational assistant. Though he had other duties last year, most of his time was spent in the library. Mr. Cortez will begin his library media specialist endorsement coursework this spring. And Debbie Pfeiffer came to Howard all the way from Harney County School District in Eastern Oregon, where she served as the district librarian for 5 years. There she oversaw K-12 libraries and brings her dynamic experience, knowledge base, and passion for libraries to Howard. Debbie partners with the amazing Julie Hopkins, Howard's longtime library assistant. By mid-September, all 3 of these fabulous people were circulating books in their library regularly. This chart compares circulation at the 3 schools from September to November from the year 2021 to 2022. Notice the growth at Chavez. Chavez has the smallest enrollment of these 3 schools, and last year the circulation for the entire school year was a little over 2,000 in total. In the first 2 months of school, Ms. Dyer has already circulated nearly 2/3 of last year's total for the entire year. Holt and Howard have had the strongest elementary library programs in the past and continue to grow. One of the many benefits of having certified teacher librarians is the instruction that happens when classes visit the library. Not only do they ensure books circulate regularly and build strong library collections, but teacher librarians teach valuable library and research skills, how to stay safe online, and be a positive and respectful contributor to their digital world, as well as how to access and navigate databases and our digital library collection. They also collaborate with teachers to connect learning to the classroom and tie lessons into curriculums such as the new Wit and Wisdom ELA adoption, science, social studies, and the new health curriculum. In coming months, lessons will focus on heritage celebrations such as Native American and Asian American and Pacific Islander heritage, as well as historical celebrations such as Black history and women's history. December is especially fun as we participate in an hour of code where every student from kindergarten to 5th grade will learn to code. It's a total blast. If you're up for volunteering, an extra adult is always welcome in those K-1 classes as they learn to code. In late winter and early spring, lessons will focus on research skills, poetry, and book reviews. If all goes as planned, we'll end the year with a kickoff to the 4J summer reading program. There are a few key areas of support needed for this pilot to be successful. The first of which is to form an advisory committee made up of teachers, principals, and teacher librarians and admin to provide support, direction, and assess needs for this pilot. And as an example, I have been reassigned to Chavez these past couple of weeks as a part of the elementary behavior support teams. And though I haven't been able to be in the library much, there are specific needs which an advisory committee could assist with that would really help Ms. Dyer and relieve a lot of stress and her workload, allowing her library light to shine bright. Secondly, we also need equitable library budgets at each school. Building a diverse, engaging library collection takes time, energy, knowledge, and money. Circulation increases when a library can be responsive to the needs of its patrons. We also have a responsibility to circulate a collection of books that is updated and accurate, and that requires a consistent, dedicated investment. Our students deserve to read quality, accurate, high-interest, updated books, and this is what keeps them coming back for more. Lastly, in my dream world, we will continue to hire more teacher librarians. I understand it's going to be a long road and it's quite an investment. Might I suggest a Grow a Librarian program? What if 4J supported folks interested in getting their library endorsement? It could look similar to Mr. Cortez's situation at Holt. They begin working a library as a library assistant while they work towards getting their teacher librarian license and endorsement. Then they naturally take on the role of a teacher librarian once they earn their degree. Creating a pathway to become a teacher librarian would help our district grow librarians for all our schools. Though there is still work to be done, I am so excited to have a teacher librarians in our elementary schools. And thank you again. I'm just filled with gratitude. Please feel free to let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Amy. That was very exciting to learn about. Laurel?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that beautiful, thorough. Thank you. You can read the slides, but nothing's like everything that you gave to us. So thank you. I have one question, and this is, I guess, more for you, but also the whole board and the district. I love the advisory committee. I would love to also see a certain amount of parents and maybe some students as part of that. And I don't know exactly how that would work, and I wouldn't be my job to figure that out. But we're working really hard this year to include more voice, since for so many decades, I'm gonna say decades, we've been shutting down voice. And so for people to help and add, my work as a social worker, the most simplest thing, but thing that rarely happens is the question of what do you want to happen next to the person who's using the system. And so that's the thing I would love to see. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great idea.
Gordon?
Thanks. I also obviously appreciate all of this. And I just want to say, before I started being understanding like what librarians do, my whole idea was what I knew as a kid, which is like a nice person who checks out books. And that was the beginning and the end. And to realize like, the critical role that librarians play in finding books that kids like to read, so that in encouraging kids to take pleasure in reading, which is one of the most critical things that can happen, and we don't have a program for that. The second is teaching research skills, which might sound like, oh, that's just in high school. But I know even in K-5, if you say, oh, I'm just interested in exploring this thing, and how do I know if I want to get two sides of a story, where do I go? Or how do I know what's the difference between something legitimate and something illegitimate is critical. And then I know also that librarians can create whole interactive websites for content areas that teachers are teaching. If a teacher says, oh, I'm doing this thing on Mesopotamia or whatever, can you create a website that will help my kids be able to explore that more? And I assume that because we haven't had elementary school librarians for 20 years, it's normal that elementary school teachers and leadership may not know that these are things you can use librarians for and how to make that happen. So it makes sense to me that we're at the beginning and there would be a lot of like figuring out and troubleshooting and hurdles to overcome. And I think the advisory committee is great to do that. I would like to ask, and I get this is probably in the end more of an ask to Andy than to you. I don't know that, I don't think the board members need to be a member of the committee. My colleague Michelle Hsu would have a lot of expertise to bring. I don't, but I know it's an area of importance to us. And if it's possible for us to just sit in as observers to be able to track what's happening, that would be great. Because I think it's really important, and it's important to make it work out right. I also think the Grow a Librarian idea is terrific. Thanks.
Thank you.
Judy, you hand down quickly and then put it back up. So I'll let you go before me because I don't mean to be in front of you.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't mean to put it down. That's why I put it back up. So again, thank you, Amy, to appreciate the presentation. It's good to get information as the year goes on about the pilot that we funded. So that's really wonderful. So I had two questions. One is there other data or other information we're looking at to look at efficacy? I think this is great, seeing the distribution, but that sort of feeds into my second part of the question. I'll ask them both. You can, I was actually surprised, some of the grants that we reviewed for EEF were asking for books for the library. So I think it made me think about, is there equity across, how are libraries doing for books to give out? And that's part of the equation.
So that's the reason that I spoke about the budget, is that, right, I especially at Chavez, that did not have any library culture. Like, she has a really different lift than Howard and Holt that have had some sense of a library culture because they had someone assigned to the library there. And so they were used to having money to spend there, and Chavez didn't. And so, to no fault of anybody, I'm not placing blame here anywhere, but there's no budget there, and she needs to get started like months ago buying books for that library. This week I did have some spots of time to go in and help weed, and weeding is really an important thing to so kids can get to the good stuff, right? So now there's a lot less books, but it will, crazily enough, increase circulation, but it produced a lot of holes. And so I know that this year, I think we're being told, well, it'll be a part of the budget next year. But with Chavez, I'm like, she needs money now. She needs to start getting books in that library now. And I think she just said she got like a 500. She's tried writing grants and things, but I was just hoping maybe we could just equitably give all of our schools somehow this year some funds to get started with. And she just doesn't have any there. So yes, and I think that that's what
somebody spoke with, maybe it was Gordon who spoke with next year. There's a plan, I think, to equitably fund the libraries. So, but again, I'm not quite sure about that, but I've heard that that's the plan. So right now, that would be amazing if we had that for those 3 programs that have teacher librarians to like invest in their programs. So.
Well, if for some reason we do need to wait till next year, I don't know the budget details right now to address. I know that hopefully some of the programs got funded from EEF, but also I know United Way does a lot of book drives with specific titles. I mean, they would actually help get titled books that, you know, that you want, not just random necessarily. Yeah. It's something to talk about for sure.
Okay, thank you. That's a good idea.
Andy?
Yeah, not that money is just raining down from the sky, but part of the pilot is to have monies set aside to support, like you said, Amy, those schools that maybe have a bigger lift than other schools. And so I know that Justin has spoken about it. I've spoken about it with Steve. Brooke and Rob and I have talked about what could be possible. So now that you have been in it enough to have a better sense of what your need is, it might be time to have a conversation about how to resource that. We can do that for sure.
Awesome. Thank you. That would be great. I know Martha would be excited. She did write a grant to Selco. She got the $500 grant, but that's the tip of the iceberg. So it'd be really great. I know she'd be thrilled to have a good start in there. So thank you. That's awesome.
Thank you, Amy. I just wanted to take a moment and really appreciate our fellow board member, Michelle Hsu, for the amount of time and attention she's also put into supporting and advocating for our librarians and our libraries. I'm really happy every time I hear that you all are meeting, because I think that when there's the opportunity to collaborate like this, really wonderful things will come out from there. So I just want to shout out to Michelle in that process.
Ditto that. Yeah, she's been great. And she's a great knowledge base and a really good listening ear as well. So yeah, we're grateful for that collaboration. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Michelle.
Thank you so much. If there's no other questions, we'll say thank you for joining us and for sharing with us and giving us this update. We've been eager to hear about this ever since we voted to take on this pilot. So thank you, Amy.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Have a great night. Thanks for all your great work.
Bye. Next on our items for information is the SIA progress report, and I believe we'll be hearing from Brooke Wagner, our Assistant Superintendent of Instruction. Hi, Brooke.
Let me unmute myself. Good evening, board chair and board members and Superintendent Dye. I'm here to want to first acknowledge the collaborative work across departments to put together that work on our SIA reports. It's a combination of Oscar Loureiro in research and planning, our colleague Matt Brown in finance, and we have some support staff that do a large amount. This is one of the bookends for our SIA end of the year report. Throughout the school year, we have required 4 progress reports that are quarterly, and then this is our end of the year report that we share with the board. We did it last November. We'll do it. Obviously, we're doing it this November. And in the future, as we are embarking on the new integrated guidance from Oregon Department of Ed, it'll look different as we move forward. We've been already given that indication. There is a handout in the board packet that had a draft of the annual cover sheet. It's interesting that our progress report, our end of the year report, is not as meaty as our quarterly reports. And so our teams are finalizing the spending, and I was actually able to, the presentation, the sheet of paper that's in your board packet had the spending allocations from last year at the time of documents due to the board packet. And since then, I know the finance department has worked to finalize, and we are not giving any money back to the state for unspent dollars. And that's one of the things that I wanted to highlight, because over the past year, we have, with staffing, difficulty in hiring some of our staffing positions in SIA, some difficulty in resourcing materials in SIA, and some of the delays that we had in our professional development. We had some money that we reinvested in areas that were pre-identified with SIA. One of the things that we were able to do is add more money to our prevention services. We were able to have 2-year contracts with community partners through Oregon Social Learning Center, through expand our HOOTS contract. So every high school has HOOTS in it every day. We were also able to give some additional funding to our natives program for some of their staffing people, and additional money to diversity and equity to increase our affinity groups. We heard about that in some previous board meetings, for a neurodiverse affinity group, in addition to a Jewish affinity group for students. So those are some of the things that are unspent money we were able to reinvest in areas pre-identified. Again, remember the SIA was approved 2 years ago, but as we know, the last 2 years have been, for lack of a better term, clunky and disruptive. And as we embark on our new integrated guidance that we have talked a little bit about, but as we move in the next 2 or 3 months, we're starting to get more information from the state, and we're embarking on a engagement process with our stakeholders, staff, community members. So I wanted you to know that as we move forward, we have some areas that we recognized that needed additional support, and we were able to do that with some of our unspent money from this past year. Dr. Dye, did you have anything you wanted to add, particularly about any of the integrated guidance?
No, that was great, Brooke. Thank you very much. Normally in education, we speak in 3-letter acronyms, and this is integrated guidance, and we toss that word around a lot, but it's only got 2 letters, so we use the full name instead of the acronym. But so that folks fully understand, ODE has been working to try to help us by providing guidance that integrates all of the grants that they give us, so that the intent being more streamlined reporting, and it's easier for us using the same timeline to dovetail funding, so that we don't make a plan with one set of dollars and then subsequently make a different plan with a different set of dollars. So moving forward, the process that we go through for integrated guidance includes SIA, so we won't really talk about SIA, the Student Investment Act, in isolation. We'll be making those plans as we also make plans for the general fund, as we also make plans with Perkins funds, as we also make plans with high school success, so we can really take a comprehensive look at what is the community saying that we're doing that needs to be amplified because it's working, and what is the community saying, you're doing this, but it's not really delivering in the way that we had hoped, so we can make those changes.
And I want to share at future board meetings, as we continue to embark on that engagement process, we'll be able to dissect the 9 areas in which we have made investments with our SIA dollars, and what a little bit more in depth around those things, and what we've spent our money on, and what we've allocated our money towards, based on the feedback that we received from 2 years ago, and how we want then to that evolve in that specific area. And in addition to what Dr. Dye said, high school success, Perkins dollars, all those different pots of money that we get.
Judy?
Thank you. Thanks, Brooke. That was really helpful. And you partially answered my question, I think, in your summary, that this is just, this is bookending reports. Because I think when I read the summary narrative questions, I said, well, I know we did a whole lot more. I mean, we had 12 million, almost $13 million to spend. So somewhere in these other reports would be other details about how we spent it and what the outcomes and same kinds of questions.
Yes, that's why I think it's interesting that our end of the year report is so light, but our quarterly reports are pages and pages and very extensive. So those are things that I think those are things that we could get you access to if you would like to. I don't want to say that you'd had those in board packets in the past. I just want to, but I thought it was kind of interesting that the end of the year report is so light, but we do know that templates are going to be changing and processes will be changing as we move forward.
So if we did want to see those, I should just email you and ask if I was curious to see the other work. I mean, yeah. Okay, great.
And Oscar, who I think is on the call too, his team has been instrumental in guiding us and keeping us on track for the state reporting.
Gordon?
Thank you. I really thought we were going to get something different, and I guess that doesn't matter so much, but I think we need something different. And there's two fundamental things that I think that I would like to see. One is I'd like to hear early what the plan is for public engagement around making decisions about how to spend the upcoming round of SAA dollars. We may have different views on the board. I personally believe the way we did it last time was very ineffective and think we need to do it fundamentally different. We may have totally different views on that, but I think we need to at least have that discussion in time for it to be to make a difference. And the second thing is, we, meaning ultimately the board, but also the community, obviously we need to make a decision about, okay, we have this amount of money plus more, and what do we want to do with it? And that means both having more detail about what did we actually do with it. So I understand this may be all the state requires, but I think what we require to be intelligent about this is like within any of the categories, like improved third grade reading, we budgeted $3.2 million. But so some of the questions is like, how much of that was for one-time things that wouldn't be continuing anyway, like buying books for classroom libraries or buying new curriculum or something like that? How much of it was for ongoing? And then what was the rest of it? How much of it was staff, learning for all? How much of that was professional development? How much of it was staff? And then the version of the required questions here, which I don't know what the state wants to get at, but to me, what these seem to be hinting at, what I would want to know evaluation from the district is, how do we think things actually worked? Because at some level, I assume there's some of this that was one-time spending that nobody thinks we need to continue, but then the most of it, we're going to be faced with a question of, do we keep doing more of the things that we've been doing, or do we shift the money to something else? And to be able to be intelligent in that discussion, we need to know what it was spent on, and we need to know the district's evaluation of how well things worked. So that's obviously is not tonight, but it's also fairly soon, because I believe we're on a timetable of a few months. So anyway, those would be my requests for the future. Thanks.
Andy?
Thank you. I don't mean to steal your thunder, Brooke, so chime in whenever you feel I misrepresent or omit, but Gordon, you should have, please let me know if you didn't receive an attachment with more item level spending. And the purpose of that wasn't necessarily that you would digest it tonight, but that you could start to take a look at that and begin to post questions that I could either answer in Friday memo, or we could be collecting those and providing answers and schedule another session to discuss at the board. And then at that time, we can provide you with a really step-by-step process that we are thinking about for community engagement for the entire integrated guidance process, which is the first majority of what I would hope to be our this strategic plan development process.
Thank you. I didn't see that. I assume it's my fault. And so I want to apologize for my tone of how could we only be getting these few numbers if it's really my fault for having missed that. So I'm sorry for that and thank you. And I'll look forward to reading it.
And that's the one thing that I wanted to say. That's why in the board packet, it was pretty slim because as board packet went to print, and Matt and his group in finance has been able to really since then flush that out. And that's what the attachment Dr. Dye is referring to. But I also wanted you to know that we're also working on some cover sheets in the sense of there's 9 areas that we had identified in this Student Investment Act, and we are going to be able to share how much, particularly it's important that you know how much staffing is involved in each area. Because I know, as you mentioned, Gordon, ongoing costs versus one-time costs. And so we're in the process of working on that. And that'll be some of the stuff that's used and that Andy was referring to as we move out and get feedback. But some of those things are still in process. It's a very extensive, thorough report that Matt Brown prepared. But it might not, we're doing some work around the classified staffing, the certified staffing, and the administrative staffing that's also in there, just so it's an easy look. So more to come.
Thank you.
And just final note with the ratification and very recent adoption of the contract, those numbers will change because all of the pay is retroactive. So we'll be doing some work over the next couple of weeks, month to make that really, really accurate. And we'd be happy to come back and share some more information with you.
Thank you, everyone. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, with that, we'll move. Thank you, Brooke. I appreciate it. With that, we'll move on to the next item for information, which is board working agreements. Before I jump into this, I just want to explain that the documents that were uploaded were not exactly what I was expecting to be uploaded, which is fine, but I want to make sure that we understand that there was one that was labeled proposed working agreements. And for now, you can disregard those. What we want to talk about today is something a little bit different. So when we worked on working agreements last year, I was personally struck by the large number of items that made up our working agreements. They're really, really long. And I was wondering myself how many were listing policy as agreements. And the more I learned about board policy, the more I realized that in fact, the vast majority are not actually what might be considered agreements, but rather mandates we must follow, sometimes because they're policy, sometimes state law, and sometimes actually both. So a big shout out to Lisa Fjordbeck, because I proposed a project for her to work on and she jumped in eagerly. So in order to understand just how many of these agreements, and I'm putting quotes around them, are actually things we are required to do, I asked Lisa to go through our current working agreements, which we finalized in February of this year, and note which ones are law, which ones are policy, and which ones are actual agreements. And I wanted this done for 2 reasons. I wanted to know if there were agreements which we do not have unanimous board support for, and there were quite a few last year. I wanted us to have an awareness as to whether they are actually policy, so that we can better understand the expectation of our behavior, but also consider revising our policy if there is a need to revisit the expectation outlined. And also to understand that the things that we are agreeing to, the categorization of agreement versus mandate, really. So also by the second component of this project is separate from working agreements, but by pulling out the policy items, Lisa will also be able to create a document that can serve as a quick hand guide to board policy as it relates to the work we take on. And this hand guide can not only help current board members when they need to access policy quickly, when they have wonderings about expectations held of them, but also it will serve to support the onboarding of new board members. So Lisa has done a preliminary pulling apart of the working agreements. And I was personally struck by just how many are not true agreements, but rather mandated expectations. So I'm just today wanting to share, I'll pull up the document and I'll share it. I believe I should be able to share my screen so that you can see the number of items that are, is that working? Do I have like a million things up showing, or are you only seeing the document? Okay, good. So you're not seeing like family photos. All right, good. So what I did here was I took Lisa's work, and everything that you can see here in red is actually mandated by our policy. So I'm just going to scroll through. This isn't necessarily a time to jump into the nitty gritty of the actual items. This is just an introduction to the idea that maybe we need to think about looking at our agreements and considering which items are policy. And if we don't have unanimous agreement, it's time for us to revisit those policy items. So here, I'll just keep going. When you get to blue, blue is the items that are mandated by Oregon statute, and purple are the items that are a combination of Oregon statute and policy. So, and the black ones are the ones that are just traditional agreements. They are not mandates. They are things that we as a board came to as agreements. So again, the purpose of sharing this document is to see the visual cue. If you look at communication by board members, I believe this entire one is all mandates. We have no option here unless we revise our policy. And I know Laurel earlier mentioned BGBGD, which if you can see number 2 and number 9 are both referenced there. So the entire section, as you can see, all of them mandated by policy or statute. And I'll keep going and going, and you can see, and then at the end I have the tally. So we have 42 total working agreements, which is a lot. I'm not sure a single one of us could remember every single one of those working agreements. And out of those 42, 11 are genuine agreements that are not mandated by policy or Oregon law. So I can leave this up, but I don't know if anybody needs it. I think that the impact of the visual is probably enough. So the purpose today is to just let you know that Lisa has been working on this, and there's 2 intentions. One, to separate out policy from agreement. And also the second would be to have that secondary effect of being able to create a document where we would have something available to us as board members to sift through and be able to easily access the policies that impact our daily workings as board members. So I don't know if there's anybody that has questions. We will be revisiting this soon. We didn't come to a conclusion with our board working agreements until February last year. So I believe one of our working agreements is that we do that at least once a year. So we still have a little bit of time. But I wanted to share the work that Lisa's been putting in and to say thank you to Lisa for doing so. So I don't know if there's anyone with any questions. I doubt anybody is overwhelmingly surprised, but I do want to put it in folks' minds that it might mean that we have quite a bit of policy exploration ahead of us. Judy?
I just wanted to thank you for undertaking this. I think I think the only thing I'd ask in the end product is whatever it is it's a form that's usable. Because I know sometimes when I'm searching policies, I know somehow it should relate in a way that's easy to use.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. I'm sure you have that on your mind. So.
No, I'm glad that you say that, because that's exactly one of the things Lisa and I talked about, which is when you pull up a policy and it's this much writing, but you really just need this blurb here to understand that this will allow us to have kind of a shortening, but a condensed and approachable access to the policy. And if we continue, because I think that there is value to listing it under the categories that we have. So, kind of replicating what we have, but pulling it out so that it's not confusing also, so that we don't have board members who are saying, well, I don't need to do that. Maybe what we need to do is revisit the policy, so then we decide if we need to do that or not, because there are quite a few policies that we're not necessarily following. And I think it's because we sometimes refer to them as working agreements versus policy, because that's the form in which we are more familiar with them. But I agree, making it accessible is ultimately the goal. Laurel?
I would say thank you, because I think you're right in the sense that I like the separation. I just remember though, when I got on the board, that was one of the first things I read, and it gave me so much information. So when you're talking about that accessibility, I guess maybe it's a handbook, maybe it's something that says these are and it could be written a different way, but having these, I think these are here because they're highlighted for a reason. And so I think it can be with like somebody who's been part of the district for 20 years, be like, we know this. But for somebody like myself, who's been a board member for a little over a year, I didn't know all this. It's been, as I've heard Michelle and Kirthi say quite a bit, a crash course that just keeps coming at you. And it does keep listening, but about SIA, it's just like, crap, I need to study this more. Didn't mean to say CRAP. So anyway, I like it, but I also think can't go away, because as I've said in the past, can be different, like you're saying, but not go away completely. As I've said in the past, our onboarding has not been as good. I think it got better last time, but I think it could even be better, because we've heard several times where they're like, I'm not sure what's going on. I really want it to be a warm, welcoming thing where people can understand the role, the gravity of what they're doing. So yes, and is what I'm saying. Thank you.
Yeah, I hear you. And in response, just to reiterate, nothing is going away. It's just being pulled aside so that it can serve as a guide and is clearly marked as policy, which we do not have a choice about. So yeah, that's the intention behind this project, is to really understand what is actually an agreement and what is actually something that we are compelled by either policy or state law to follow, which are very different things. Agreements are things that, I can't decide. It's not like I'm going to announce to the world that from now on, I'm going to stop at stop signs. I have to stop at stop signs, but I can say from now on, I will walk on my side of the sidewalk if that's what's going to be the thing that I decide is my agreement with the community. So it's really important that we understand where we have things as policy, because there was so much contention over so many of these items, and looking back through them, there's quite a few that folks are still not following. So that it'll be helpful for us currently as well as for onboarding. I think it'll be a very useful tool. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, then in that case, we move on to items for action. The first item on the list is to approve a resolution on measures to address safety and disruption in board meetings. Superintendent Dye, I don't know if you have anything further to present to us. We've looked at this quite a few times. If you have anything to add, now is the time. If not, I will ask if anybody would like to make a motion.
No, just for the sake of clarity and for those in the listening audience that don't have the board packet, that this resolution essentially states that the board chair may order additional safety measures beyond what might be in place by OHA or Lane County Public Health, what have you. And also indicates that it's the board chair who may choose, in the event of a meeting disruption, to choose to recess the meeting, go to a virtual meeting format, adjourn and reschedule, depending on the manner in which the meeting is disrupted.
Thank you for that reminder and summary. In that case, would someone like to make a motion? Gordon?
I move that we approve the resolution.
Is there a second? Judy? Okay, Gordon Lafer moves to approve the resolution on measures to address safety and disruption in board meetings, and seconded by Judy Newman. Is there a discussion? Laurel?
Yes, so I don't have, because I'm on a little screen, I don't have the resolution in front of me, but the name of it is, could somebody please state that?
It was changed after the last meeting per our agreement, and it now reads resolution on measures to address safety and disruption in board meetings.
Yes, thank you. So I would like to actually, the name for it to be correct, because it does not address all board safety in board meetings. It doesn't say anything about discrimination and harassment or anything like that. I would like it to say public health instead of safety. So I move to change the name. So I don't know exactly how to do that at this point. I've been up since 3 working on my new business. So somebody could help me, because I know there's a way to move to change the name while we're in the middle of a motion, but the name as it stands leaves out those that are marginalized. Thank you.
I believe that we have to finish addressing the motion that is on the table, and then you can make a new motion.
Can't we make a, I think you can you can move to amend the motion and somebody has to second it. So I move to amend the motion for a name change. To change the word safety to public health.
Is there a second to change the word safety to public health? Okay, so the motion has been amended to change the name of the resolution to change the word safety to public health, and by Laurel O'Rourke and seconded by Judy Newman. Is there discussion? Gordon?
I don't care about the names enough to like prolong this for a long time. And I get that this is not, that there are other aspects of safety in meetings that are important for us to address that are not addressed in this particular resolution. It feels to me like we're talking about there's disruption and therefore we're going to recess the meeting, that it's not a public health issue. I don't know what the right thing is to call it. So if everybody else wants to do it, it's fine with me. I don't need to make us discuss this. It just seems, I don't know if there's a better word.
Alicia?
Thanks. I can appreciate wanting to change the name, and I'm not in a very creative space, but public health to me has a certain connotation and it's a little confusing. Like, so you talk about needing to look up a policy. I wouldn't find meeting disruption under public health. I get changing the name, but I don't think I could vote for public health, but I could with another name change. And so just my 2 cents.
Kirthi?
Can we leave out the safety part and just call it security? If we're dealing with literal security measures around board meetings. Do I need to friendly amend that? Like, I mean,
So are you suggesting?
I get what Laurel is saying, and I understand the public health measures too. So I'm like, this is my suggestion.
So you're suggesting replacing safety with security instead of public health?
It just seems more of a direct actions that we're taking to address security rather than more of a mental space in any case, and being able to stay safe on that. So that's my suggestion on there. I don't know in terms of process what that means. Do I have to friendly amendments, or?
I accept your friendly amendments.
Okay, so then that makes the current amended motion on the table to approve the resolution with the renaming of the resolution to read measures to address security and disruption in board meetings. Is that the understanding everybody has on the table? Okay. Is there any further discussion? I don't see any hands raised, so I will call the question. All those in favor of the motion to approve the resolution on measures to address security and disruption in board meetings, raise your hand and say aye. Okay, I see that the motion passes unanimously with yes votes from Michelle Shu, Maya Rabasa, Kirthi Hasija Kaufman, Gordon Lafer, Judy Newman, Alicia Hayes, and Laurel O'Rourke. The next item on our action items is to consider voting on Oregon School Board Association election, and Rob Hess will lead us here.
Yeah, so in the packet is a list of legislative priorities, and this does not have to be acted on tonight. It's more, it could be for a future. There's a window of time to look at this from now until December 15th is the window. And so it's just on there as a topic. And Maya, did you have something regarding and Judy? Am I missing?
I'll pass it off to Judy, but my understanding is that we absolutely do need to do this tonight because you can fill in, Judy.
Yeah, Judy, take it away.
Well, yeah, I think we actually are one day late. It was November 15th, but our meeting's tonight. So I think we do need to take action tonight, unless you heard something at OSBA I wasn't aware of.
No.
I think that maybe the confusion here is that the actual elections, which have not quite opened yet, are upcoming. And so we've kind of folded the two into one topic. But the action item itself is to vote on the priorities and preferences as laid out by OSBA. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's the legislative priorities and principles just as they stand. Yeah, thank you. That we've had in the packet at least twice, so.
Okay. Before any discussion, would somebody like to make a motion? Judy?
I will. I didn't see Gordon jumping up, so that I move that we approve the legislative priorities and principles presented from the OSBA Legislative Policy Committee.
Is there a second? Kirthi? Okay, so as moved by Judy Newman, the motion is to approve the OSBA legislative principles and priorities. Am I right? Did I get it right this time?
Yes.
Okay, good. As presented by the OSBA Legislative Committee and seconded by Kirthi Hasija Kaufman. Is there any discussion? Okay, in that case, all those in favor, please say aye and raise your hand. Okay, I see 6 votes in favor from Michelle Shu, Maya Rabasa, Kirti Hasija Kaufman, Alicia Hayes, Gordon Lafer, and Judy Newman. All those opposed, raise your hand and say no. I see a vote for no from Laurel O'Rourke. The motion passes 6-1. Now we move on to the item that Gordon requested be added as an action item, which is to come to a resolution regarding a complaint that was processed in our executive session per KLAR practices. Gordon?
Thank you. So I know this will sound a little cryptic to listeners, but it's referring to executive session discussion. So we discussed a complaint that involved 3 people who we numbered persons 1, 2, and 3. And I would like to propose that we first that we separate them, that we decide or declare that we don't have jurisdiction over the complaint against person 1, and that we dismiss the complaints against person 2 and 3, and that we also state, and here I'm hoping that Judy Newman, you might help me, because I thought you might have some language that I think everybody'd wanted to include a commitment to doing work and revisiting policies as relevant. I don't know if you can help with the end of this, Judy.
I'm going to look for some of my notes here. Thank you. I was not prepared. Let me see. I think we want to review our policies related to safety, especially around as it has to do with harassment and racism in our meetings. We want to review the policies we have to make sure they're adequate and clear, and that we also engage as a board, as we plan to do in anti-racist work.
Okay, so I would.
And I'm sorry, there was one more, and to really have a really clear distinction of where free speech crosses a line, and I think that's related to racism and safety. So those would be the 3 things.
Okay, so that would be my motion, including the 3 things that Judy just stated. You're muted, Maya.
To clarify, your motion is to pull out person 1 from the complaint. I'm going to ask you to repeat it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gordon.
Okay, Judy, this is going to be a tag team effort. It's to pull out person 1 and to declare that we don't have jurisdiction over that, to dismiss the complaints against in regard to person 2 and 3, and to state our commitment to doing the equity work and reviewing the adequacy of policies around safety at meetings, particularly around racist and other forms of bigotry, harassment, including clarifying the boundaries of what kind of speech is acceptable and not acceptable in our meetings.
Yes.
Point of order. I believe this should be 2 different motions. That is a lot and very different things in one motion.
I think there's a thing where you can make a motion to separate them. If you want, I think that's a Robert's Rules thing.
I think before that happens, it needs to be seconded. Is there a second for Gordon's motion? I see Kirti Hasija Kaufman has seconded the motion. And is there discussion? Laurel?
Yes, I move to separate some motion that has, I can't even keep track of everything that's in it.
So do you move to separate the motion so that 1 is to pull out person 1 because it's not our jurisdiction and dismiss the complaint against person 2 and 3, And then the second motion would be to commit to doing the work to revise or to review our policy surrounding safety, freedom of speech, and public comment.
So to pull out person one, because it's not our jurisdiction, and to Gordon's motion to dismiss and separate the other two. Or three
Right.
things.
Yeah.
So it's the way you stated it sounded more like three motions, but I'm saying one is to pull out person one, and two is to dismiss and commit.
So you want the distinction, the first motion is to pull out person one. And the second motion is to dismiss the complaint against persons 2 and 3 and commit to the review of the policy surrounding safety, public comment, and freedom of speech.
Yes, that's where I would like Gordon's motion separated.
Kirthi, or I'm sorry, before we move on with that, we need a second. Kirthi seconds that motion to separate at the point between pulling apart and then the dismissal and the review. Now we can have discussion. Kirthi?
I don't have much, but I feel like if it's a procedural thing to separate, then that's fine, as long as we are committing to do the work of that we are proposing. So.
Are there any other points of discussion? Okay, so then let's vote on each one separately.
I think we have to vote on the motion to separate.
Okay, that's right. Thank you. All those in favor of separating Gordon's motion into two separate motions, split after the pulling apart of person one and dismissing the complaint against persons 2 and 3 and committing to do the before mentioned work, raise your hand and say aye. Okay, I see 5 hands voting in favor. I see Michelle Shu, Judy Newman, Laurel O'Rourke, Kirthi Hasija Kaufman, and Alicia Hayes. All those opposed, raise your hand and say no. And that would be no's from Meyer Abassa and Gordon Lafer. And the motion to separate passes. Now we separate, someone help me here. I'm looking at you, Alicia. Do we do each one separately or do we have to pull them up?
I think then
Yes, we do each one separately.
Okay, so let's vote on the first one, which is to pull apart person 1 out of the complaint because it is not our jurisdiction. All those in favor of pulling apart person 1 from the complaint because it's not part of our jurisdiction, raise your hand and vote and say aye. I see 6 hands raised in favor from, oh, sorry, 7. Sorry. Michelle Shu, Laurel O'Rourke, Judy Newman, Gordon Lafer, Alicia Hayes, Kirthi Hasija Kaufman, and Meyer Abassa. So that passes unanimously. The second motion is to dismiss the complaints against persons 2 and 3 and to commit to doing the work of revisiting our policies regarding safety, public comment, freedom of speech. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Okay, I see 6 hands raised in favor from Michelle Shu, Meyer Abassa, Judy Newman, Gordon Lafer, Alicia Hayes, and Kirthi Hasija Kaufman. All those opposed, raise your hand and say no. I see a hand raised from Laurel O'Rourke. The motion passes 6-1. Next up on the agenda is an item for action at future meeting. The first item up is a presentation from Superintendent Dye regarding superintendent evaluation goals.
Thank you. So this, as you said, is an item for action at a future meeting. This is the first read. So in your board packet, you have received documents that include what I am proposing to be my goals. Those are: the superintendent will increase district effectiveness through a reorganized infrastructure in order to better meet students' needs while increasing transparency for and accountability to the entire community. Superintendent, in partnership with the community, will create a new strategic plan that will guide the district's efforts over the next 4 years. And number 3, the superintendent will work to ensure organizational decision quality is foundational in the district's work to center equity in all decisions. Examples include, but are not necessarily limited to: increase access to opportunities for neurodivergent students, changes to the schedule for secondary schools, development of an equitable grading framework, and a robust multi-tiered system of support for student mental health and well-being. And then there is reference in those documents to board policy CBG, evaluation of the superintendent, that talks about the timeline and then the manner in which evaluative marks would be given and what needs to happen in the event that my services are deemed to be unsatisfactory. And then there is a statement to the effect that in order to enhance alignment with this current strategic plan, which is Vision 2020, and that would be in place over the balance of this year, the evaluation of the superintendent will be based upon the major goals of that plan. And those are educational excellence with equitable access and outcomes for every student, multiple pathways to student success, communication and connection with community, diverse world-class workforce, and the last, stable, sustainable stewardship. And then there is a process, and Judy, I believe that you provided this to the board in an earlier meeting from what was proposed last year. Is that an accurate recollection? And that is essentially this item for action at a future meeting. Happy to take feedback on either my goals or the process, or answer any questions that you might have.
All right, looks like we are good with the information. Thank you, Superintendent Dye. The next item for action at a future meeting, rather, is the OSBA anti-racist resolution.
Yes, this resolution's in your board packet. This was voted on a couple of meetings ago by the entire board, 7-0, that we would bring something forward. So I think, would you like me to share the screen so you can all kind of look at it? And would you like me to read it, or what's the best way to proceed with this?
Rob, maybe share your screen and then just talk through the highlights.
Okay.
I know it was in our board packet, so.
Right, it's in the board packet. So can you see the screen there, the anti-racist board resolution?
Yes.
Okay. So whereas the Eugene 4J school, as individually elected members and as the governing body for the Eugene School District 4J, is committed to providing a safe learning environments, meaningful, equitable, and highly effective instruction so that all students thrive socially, emotionally, and academically, and to reduce the disparity of outcomes for students of color and students with disabilities. Whereas the vision, values, and equity stance of the Eugene School District 4J is every student is connected to community and empowered to succeed, and is guided by the values of equity, excellence, and choice. And in every decision made by the board, it is important to consider equity and the impact on students and families, especially those in underserved demographic groups and protected classes. Whereas systemic racism has plagued our nation for over 400 years and is evident in national, state, and local institutions, including public education. Whereas the school board members have resolved to play a vital role in committing to learning and to recognize and combat implicit bias and overt racism. Whereas the 4J School Board has resolved to identifying and correcting practices and policies that perpetuate institutional racism in all aspects of the functioning of the school board and school district. Whereas the Eugene 4J School Board is committed to leading as an exemplar in advancing equitable recruiting and hiring practices to ensure diverse representation in educational institutions. Whereas the Eugene School Board represents the interests of the 6th largest school district in Oregon and is committed to using its position to address systemic racism, not solely leaving the mission of advancing opportunity for people of color only to those of color. Whereas important and finite district resources, including time and treasure, are allocated to the school board, Oregon School Board Association, charged with advocating on behalf of school boards across the state. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the Eugene 4J School Board is committed to holding the association to which it belongs accountable to similar high standards of examining their processes, hiring practices, trainings, and equitable decision-making that the district adheres to in its own practices. Further, be it resolved that the Eugene 4J School Board commits to pressing the Oregon School Boards Association for clear transparency on the equity tool the association uses to apply to decisions and counsel the association provides to the school district it serves. Further, be it resolved that the Eugene 4J School Board shall request the association evaluate and strive to improve the diversity of paid staff member positions funded in part by district contributed dues so that the association better reflects the diversity of the voices they represent, as currently the positions remain largely members of the white majority. Finally, be it resolved, the school board will continue to support the association's work to improve education outcomes for students of color and to build the capacity of board members of color, as the school board does not believe these critical goals should fall to the sole responsibility of the association's board members of color caucus alone, but rather all Oregon school board members.
Thank you, Rob. Are there any questions or comments? Laurel?
I asked that the resolutions specifically ask for Black and Indigenous staff to be added to the OSBA.
Yeah, this is just a draft, so we can definitely revise it.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? All right, well, I will add my own. I appreciate, Rob, that last component there that is acknowledging the work of the Color Caucus and the efforts put forward and commits to working alongside them. I think that's really important. There's quite a few people across the state who have been taking on this work, and acknowledging that is vital. Laurel?
In my experience with the caucus of color, it actually does nothing to reduce the racism inside of the OSBA. They were created kind of as an aside to put all equity work to the side, and they have no voice or real power. It's a way to do performative work around discrimination, but performance is a show. What we need is foundational change, and that happens when we hold people accountable and say, when you are hiring the people, paying the people to do this work, then we will believe that you are actually doing the work to change the racism inherent in your system. I will reiterate, all last year, I reached out to OSBA for help. And they actively worked against me and helped the district, which at that time with the leadership was quite racist, to work against me. They never reached out to me. While they were reaching out to other board members and other staff members, they were working against me. That is inherently racist. I shouldn't be the only one who's upset about that. So the change that needs to happen is apparent. Last year, I was told by other people on the board, they absolutely saw it and believed in it wholeheartedly. This year, they have betrayed that trust. So I would really love to see people that understand, if you're talking about equity, it cannot just be a word you say to make you feel like it looks good. It has to be, equity is real people that are suffering. You cannot use it for cachet. You have to actually do the work. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? All right. Well, I thank you for that work, Rob, and appreciate what you've put into this alongside our board. The last thing on our item, oh, Judy.
It was, we have an item for the legislative priorities too on there. It was number 2, I think. You're muted, Maya.
Yes, that's right. And that's our legislative priorities. I looked at that and assumed that it was what we just had taken care of. I apologize. It says that I'm the presenter, but I believe that should be you and Kirthi, or you. I believe Kirthi had to hop off.
Yeah,
So,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think
okay.
it probably got really late where she was. So
yeah, she's definitely on the East Coast.
So in your packet, you have a 1-page draft that what you've seen are what we identified. I think the last time you saw it was all the things that the board members had identified, and Kirthi and I put together ones that were similar or the same, and we tried to present it in a way that it was a little more readable, with categories under funding, student and workforce supports, programming and infrastructure, school boards, and testing. And I hope everyone, I'm open to have questions. Our intent was not to lose anyone's ideas, but make it in a more cohesive document that we could share at the breakfast with legislators. So again, this is an item for action at a future meeting. We want to be able to, vote on it before we have the breakfast and start using it. So this is probably a good time to bring up, questions, concerns.
Does anybody have questions or concerns for Judy? Gordon?
I don't. I just wanted to thank you and Kirthi for doing the work of putting this together. Looks good to me.
Great. I would just ask, it'll be on the agenda next time to vote on. So if you have any questions in between, let us know so we can address them. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you to you and Kirthi, Judy, for consolidating all that input we gave you into something very clear to understand. Anyone else have questions or comments for Judy? All right, then with that, we have our last item for action at a future meeting, which is the topic of returning to in-person meetings. I want it stated clearly that any shift in our meetings will be rooted in equity. And for this reason, the proposal we will vote on next meeting is for us to shift to a hybrid model. Equal merit will be applied to attending in person or virtually, not only for board members, but for staff and the community as well. We have a number of board members, staff, and community members who will opt for virtual attendance for a number of reasons, from acute or chronic illness, childcare challenges, transportation issues, traveling, as well as a range of things that classify as safety concerns. As a board and as a district, we are committed to everyone's inclusion at our meetings. We will work diligently to ensure that participation will not be compromised depending on the mode of attendance one chooses to take. Participation by board members, staff, and community would continue to resemble the virtual model we have been using, as we are mandated to broadcast, stream, and record our meetings in both audio and video. To minimize the perceived difference from a recorded and archived perspective, we will ask board members and staff to blur their backgrounds, and we will not make a distinction in our attendance, noting how one is attending. Districts across Oregon have taken this hybrid approach, and we have been able to hear feedback that this model successfully offers district stakeholders both access and options, both of which are cornerstones of equity. Are there any questions? This is a simple introduction to the conversation we'll have next time when we will take action one way or the other. Okay, in that case, the last item on the agenda is suggestions by the board for consideration of items at a future meeting. Are there items that anyone would like to add to future meeting agendas? Laurel.
Yes, I had 2 things. Just 1 second, please. So my 2 were, one was for us to, I don't know how to say it because we're all tired, but and some of it is I'm sure in the work that Lisa did. Thank you so much, Lisa. But going over the expectations of when the board, what happens when the board is talking to staff. Along those lines. So that's 1.
So reviewing policy BGBD.
Let's see. So tired. I believe it's GBG. Is it not BGBD and BBAA? Something like that. But the reason we're doing it at the end is so we're not like surprise staff. So thank you, and so we have all that information when we come to the next board meeting.
Yes.
And the other oh, do we have to vote on that?
Well, we don't have to vote, but you just need 2 other hand raises for having it be considered by leadership for adding to the agenda. Okay, so I see Alicia and Judy have raised their hands, so that's 3 people. Oh, Gordon, do you want to speak to it?
I did want to speak to it, which is I have a just question about what the just to get a little more specific and about what the, like usually we look at policy because there's some concern or problem to be solved, and I'm not clear. I mean, essentially, if the concern is that there's too much communication between, I have no idea what it is, but if it were too much communication between board member employees and board members, that was somebody's concern, I would not support a discussion about that. If the concern is it's too little or too restricted communication between employees and board members.
Point of order, we've already voted on it.
Well, we didn't vote, we just took a straw poll.
Yep.
Do you not want to answer Gordon's question as to
It's
what
just a question. It's not, it doesn't
Well,
change.
I think the conversation will happen next week. We could have had it this week, but I listened to everybody, which that included you, Gordon, who was saying, let's give staff a chance to talk about this, and then we'll have a conversation. We're all tired, and it is really unkind to staff to keep them here longer than we need to. So, and I also, we've already decided that this is going to happen. So me catering to your wants is not necessary at this point.
Okay, so it sounds like we're not going to hear the why behind the request, Gordon?
I mentioned earlier my needs. I think what you're scared about is that I'm trying to go after somebody, and what I am not you. I just want people to understand their roles and where they're at. So that is what my intent is, and all of it.
Okay, I just want to use our time wisely and I want to know what it
Well,
is we're
then we
making
should move
decisions
on.
about. So if you don't want to answer that question, that's fine. We've
Then we
already
should
had
move on.
3 votes, so it'll be
Point
on
of
the
order,
agenda sometime.
Chair, could you take over the meeting again?
Yes, and I would like to point out that criticizing another person's motives and questioning them.
Point of
is-
order, it is not your job to hold me accountable. That is an act of white supremacy.
Laurel, please
Point
tell
of
me
order.
Please tell me what rule Gordon is violating.
Point of order, we have voted on it. Please take over the meeting and move on. What you're doing right now is retaliation and harassment of a Black board member.
Laurel, when somebody says point of
What
order,
you're doing right now is retaliation and harassment of your Black board member.
Laurel.
We
when
have voted
somebody-
on it and we have
Laurel.
moved on.
Well, point of order calls for the board for the chair to do something. It's not just the thing that you
Point
say.
of
and you
order
say
is
whatever you
to
say.
take over the meeting.
I need both of you to stop. Point of order calls for me to ask you what violation is happening. If you can tell me what Gordon is violating, I will let you know whether I take it into account or not.
My point of order is to say, it is up to you to control this meeting. And when he is bullying me and coming after me and retaliating against me, it is inappropriate.
Well, your
So
point is
please
not-
hold yourself accountable and do your leadership job. It is important.
Gordon
The
has
point
not
of order,
violated-
and so
Gordon has not violated any of our rules. Your point is not well taken. Thank you. What is the
then
next item?
I
you would like to
appeal
add
the
to
point of
agenda?
order to the board.
Then we can vote on that. All those in favor of Laurel's point
Maya
of order? What?
controlling the meeting instead of Gordon controlling the meeting. That's my point of order. That's what I said
That is
several
your
times.
order. Point of order has shifted, Laurel.
No, it has not. And please do not
Laurel,
gaslight me. That is
when you-
also an act
when
of
you-
white supremacy. Please do not.
Stop.
I have said exactly.
When
please
you
take
appeal
over
my
the meeting.
decision, it is not debatable. It is not debatable. It can be taken to a vote, but it's not debatable. Period. So all those in favor of
Your
supporting
behavior is
Laurel's point of
white
order-
supremacy. Everybody can see it.
Laurel, you need to stop. Your hostility and
Oh
indecorum.
my
call
word.
for
Do you
to
think
be
it's
called
appropriate? You are
out.
my peer. You do not tell me what I need to do.
I didn't tell you anything
You
that you
just
need to
told
do.
me what I need to do.
I am going to
I
adjourn. this
really-
meeting. The meeting is hereby
I ask
adjourned
that
at
somebody
10:11 p.m.
Control this
It is
meeting.
done. The meeting
Because
is
you
done,
don't
Laurel.
have the ability at this point. Your
Laurel-
racial hostility is at a high.
Laurel, the meeting is done. The meeting has been adjourned at 10:11 p.m. You are out of order.